Hey everyone, per your requests, I'm starting Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang today. My channel isn't monetized, so if you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Chapters 41 through 60 of the previous episode, Tang engages in his second practical
Tang San and Ep6's time freeze ended at this moment. Almost instantaneously, his hands landed on Gu Li and Ep6's shoulders. Then with phantom-like steps he rapidly retreated several paces with Gu Li, twisting his upper body and hurling Gu Li away. Gu Li landed 7 or 8 meters away, rolling on the ground a few times before struggling to get up. His complexion was pale as paper, clearly a case of excessive bloodline power depletion. Yet Tang San and Ep6's expression remained unchanged. He straightened his clothes and the next moment, a wind blade was once again forming in the palm of his hand. What just happened? Why does it look like he wasn't an Ep6's injured even though he was hit? Even the teachers, including Muenqing, were a bit confused. At the moment of collision, both parties and Ep6's bloodline powers and auras had been interacting chaotically, and the point where they became entangled was Tang San and Ep6's chest. As the wind blade in Tang San and Ep6's hand deepened in color, Gu Li spoke without hesitation. I concede. Due to having used his ability 3 times just now, and also due to the sudden uncontrolled depletion of his bloodline power, it was a tall order for him to use the Chrono Croc transformation now. If I don't quit and I let him hit me with that, it's going to be a problem. Guanlongjiang frowned slightly, deep in thought. There was nothing wrong with Gu Li and Ep6's mode of attack. How did it turn out that after successfully landing a hit, he was still defeated by his opponent? How could he know Tang San had been prepared when Gu Li tried to close in on him? When Gu Li collided with him, Tang San hadn't activated his heavy armor ability, the Ironhide Shield, but he had concentrated the energy of the Mysterious Heaven technique on his chest and abdomen. The 5th order energy of the Mysterious Heaven technique provided formidable protection. Furthermore, by employing the Tang sect and Ep6's unique controlling crane-catching dragon, he directly grabbed Gu Li, absorbing some of his bloodline power, then repelled him using the same technique. Gu Li and Ep6's demonic god transformation was powerful, but his cultivation level was far inferior to Tang San and Ep6's. With Tang San and Ep6's combat experience, divine consciousness, and the insight of a god king, it was almost impossible for an opponent of the same order to defeat him. Thus, Gu Li was defeated. Right now he was sitting on the floor, experiencing a solid bout of utter confusion. On the other side of the room, Tang San was experiencing something entirely different. As he absorbed that strand of Gu Li and Ep6's Chrono Croc bloodline power, the gradually forming bloodline imprint made him feel a trace of the power from his past life. Yes, it was a feeling very familiar to him. The mysteries of time, among the most profound mysteries in the universe, filled him with immense joy at this instant. While basking in this feeling, he decided without hesitation to replace the Ironhide Shield with the Chrono Croc transformation. Once this second-tier Chrono Croc transformation was integrated, even though it might only be around the 3rd order in terms of power, what it could bring him was not just an additional ability to control time. It would greatly aid his understanding of the world, and allow him to touch upon even higher-level laws. This was far more significant than the effects of the Golden Rock transformation. After integrating the Golden Rock transformation and listening to Guanlongjiang and Ep6's explanation about the orders of demonic god transformations, Tang San and Ep6's understanding of this world had deepened. Different tiers of demonic god transformations were not just variations of a single ability. Although all were called demonic god transformations, the bloodlines of different tiers resonated with the world in completely distinct ways. After integrating the Golden Rock transformation, his body had transformed, enhancing his ability to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and giving him an increasing sense of integration with this world. This plane of existence cherished higher tiers of bloodline power, which was the ultimate reason for the supremacy of bloodlines in this world. The more powerful the bloodline he absorbed, the more he felt this way. Therefore, his future direction of improvement was to pursue both his own cultivation of the Mysterious Heaven technique and the tier of his bloodline. Undoubtedly, the Redemption Society provided him with this convenience. Gu Li and Ep6's S Chrono Croc transformation and Chang Zicheng and Appo's S Golden Rock transformation were powerful bloodline powers. And then there was Tang San walked back to Dubai and smiled at him. Dubai gave him a thumbs up. The Celestial Fox is the only first-tier bloodline in the Redemption Society. Even if the owner is only at the third order, it's still a first-tier bloodline. The match between Tang San and Gu Li ended quickly, and was not as thrilling as his battle with Wu Bingji. However, after watching this match, the teachers were somewhat silent. They almost unanimously acknowledged that Tang San and Appo's practical experience was vibrant. To think that this child is only 9 years old. What kind of ridiculous talent does he have for combat? Ru and Appo's jealousy grew increasingly intense. He envied not Tang San's prowess, but the luck of a particular mayor. The practical combat class continued, but Muanqing didn't end Appo's comment on Tang San and Appo's two fights today. He was somewhat unsure how to critique them. Both Wu Bingji and Gu Li had performed exceptionally well today, yet Tang San had still led both of them by the nose. How to instruct them was a problem. Even under his guidance, could they defeat Tang San? Class ended and the teachers left together. Tang San didn't and Appo's returned to his room but went straight to Wu Bingji. Senior brother, Tang San said with a smile. Do we talk now? Wu Bingji and Appo's eyes brightened. For him, Tang San was a treasure trove. I want to take on a task from you. The mayor teacher has already agreed. I can take on any task other than sparring, Tang San said. All right, let in Appo's go, Wu Bingji said, leading Tang San back to his place. A curious Dubai followed Tang San as well. Dubai, in fact, greatly envied Tang San. Although his bloodline was the unique first tier, his cultivation was only third order. He wasn't an Appo's good at combat and severely lacked physical strength. He didn't and Appo's have to participate in the practical combat classes, but it wasn't like he never had any desire to. He had to admit to himself that as he watched his colleagues with good fighting prowess, he longed to be among them. They arrived at Wu Bingji and Appo's residence and he took out the task list again. What type of task do you want to undertake? Other than sparring tasks, which tasks earn the most money? Tang San inquired. Wu Bingji raised an eyebrow. Actually, all types of tasks are more or less similar, and the income depends on the task and Appo's difficulty. The higher up the list, the more challenging the task. But you also need to consider your capabilities. Hunting task, for instance. As he spoke, he pointed to the demon beast hunting task list and said, the income from hunting winged tigers in the Kali mountain range is very high. Demonic beasts from the tiger race are all valuable in their entirety. Every single bit of them. If we can hunt one down, the reward is huge. Actually, the reward for an adult tiger is at least 10 Naturi coins, and mind you, I said at least. But even a young winged tiger has 5th order strength, and adults can reach the 7th order. They're also very fast and agile, so they are really tough to catch. High risk, high reward. Tang San nodded. Okay, let and Appo's go with this task. What? Wu Bingji looked at him in astonishment. What did you say? Do you want to take on the task of hunting a winged tiger? Did your head get injured during sparring today? You should know that in the forests, the combat power of the winged tiger is even greater. That and Appo's their home ground. You and Appo's only 5th order. No, this is too dangerous for you. Tang San smiled slightly and said, well, as you said, how can you get a high reward if you don't take a high risk? And I never thought of doing it alone. Senior brother, let and Appo's do it together. We can also call a few other senior brothers and sisters. It might work out. We can even ask a teacher to protect us in secret. Dubai listening Kuden and Appo's help but interject, hold on, if you do it like that, is it still considered your task? No, but who cares? Tang San replied. I have no intention to take all the benefits for myself. But think of it, these dangerous tasks have much better rewards than the easier ones. Look at those tasks for hunting lesser demonic beasts. They only pay 1 or 2 Etherhorn coins. The difference between Naturi coins and Etherhorn coins is just too great. Even if I only get 1 Naturi coin, it's a lot better use of my time than hunting a bunch of low-level demonic beasts. Why not go for it? Wu Bingji said, so what do you want to do? Tang San replied, first, we need to form a small team where everyone in Appo's S abilities complement each other. We Shuden and Appos, T have too many people because otherwise there will be too little profits for each of us. Then we and Appos, LL go together to hunt for the winged tigers. If we find them, we and Appos, LL hunt them down. A teacher can supervise us from the side and intervene if they're in Appos. S danger. Wu Bingji frowned. Teachers 1 and Appos, T interfere in these tasks. We can only rely on our abilities. Leave that to me. I and Appos, LL find a way to convince the teacher. If the teacher agrees to just accompany and secretly protect us, not actually help us, it should be acceptable, right? Of course. But will the teacher agree? Wu Bingji asked doubtfully. Leave it to me. Tang San was confident. After leaving Wu Bingji, Tang San told Dubai to return to his room, then headed to Mu Unqing and Appos' residence. The Redemption Society and Appos' campus was small, so there were no offices for the teachers. He knocked on the door, but Mu Unqing hadn't and Appos' returned yet. The teachers had probably gone out together for whatever reason. Tang San wasn't in Appos' in a hurry and just waited at the door. About half an hour later, Mu Unqing finally returned. Surprised to see Tang San at her door, he asked, "Are you looking for me?" Hello, Teacher Mu. I have an idea about the practical training class I and Appos' like to discuss with you, Tang San said respectfully. Come in, Mu Unqing nodded. The teachers had actually been discussing Tang San and Appos' abilities in combat. If it weren't and Appos' for the very thorough investigation into Tang San and Appos' background, they would have found it extremely suspicious that a 9-year-old child had such immense talent in combat. It was almost against the natural order. But the facts were plain and clear before their eyes, leaving them no choice but to believe. In fact, Siru was planning to look for Zhang Haoxuan again. Feeling that this child held great promise, Mu Unqing was the most frustrated one. As a practical training teacher, he felt useless in front of little Tang San. How could he teach this child anything about combat? Mu Unqing and Appos' expertise wasn't in Appos' in elemental control, and even Guanlong Zhang and Siru Kuden and Appos' figure out how to instruct Tang San in this aspect. After closing the room door, Tang San respectfully approached Mu Unqing. What are your thoughts? Let and Appos' hear them, Mu Unqing said, sitting down. Tang San said, Teacher Mu, now that I participated in both the physical training classes and the combat ones, I think there is a problem with our practical classes. Oh, Mu Unqing looked surprised at the child. What problem? Tang San unhesitatingly said, the problem is that they're not very realistic. In actual combat, our lives would be in actual danger. I think that our potential can only really show when we face this kind of danger. For example, when I was in Windwolf Town, I was attacked by some windwolves while I was outside and I nearly died. But after that experience, my understanding of the wind element became much, much better. So, I think practical training classes should expose us to more danger so we can make greater progress under that pressure. Mu Unqing and Appos' eyes lit up. Are you saying that your deep understanding of the wind element is because you and Appos' experienced life and death situations? But you're only 9, how many experiences like that could you have? Tang San said, I guess it and Appos' has been twice? Mu Unqing nodded. Well, that and Appos' because of your high comprehension. Even if an average person experiences the same thing twice, they might not have the same realization as you. Tang San responded, if twice is not enough, then 3 times, and if that's not enough either, then we can do it even more. You know, after these things happened, I first felt fear. Then I started to think about many things. I mean, it's hard to forget a fight that almost got you killed. And because I had those experiences, I didn't want them to happen again. That made me cultivate more seriously and think up more ideas to get stronger. Mu Unqing asked, then how do you think we should conduct our practical training classes? I and Appos' seen the mission list from the eldest senior brother. It includes hunting demonic beasts. It's like sparring with people at the academy, but there's a bigger risk of death and it wouldn't expose our identities as members of the Redemption Society. So I actually thought that we could form teams to hunt demonic beasts and have a teacher secretly protecting us. But unless there is a risk to life, even if we are seriously injured, teachers should not intervene. This would allow us to feel the pressure of facing strong enemies in real combat. I believe this method would be more effective. Mu Unqing and Appos' eyes showed contemplation. The Redemption Society did have similar practical training classes, but these were usually led by a teacher who would guide them at all times and intervene at critical moments. It was rare for students to go out on their own, and if that happened, it was. After all, the Redemption Society had only a handful of students, each carefully selected and extremely valuable to the institution. The potential fatal danger to any student was a significant blow to the academy, so the teachers were always cautious. "I am just worried that there might be danger," murmured Mu Wenqing. Tang San spoke seriously. "Teacher Mu, flowers grown in a greenhouse won't do well when they are exposed to the wind and sun. On the day I arrived, the mayor told me that we have a long and tough journey ahead of us if we want to help the human race. So we have to put in as much effort as we can. Also, as I said, teachers can in secret and do something only if they're in Apo's. It's a real danger to our lives. That makes sense, doesn't it?" Mu Wenqing said, "I need to think about this. Do you have a specific plan? I just talked about it with the eldest senior brother, and we think we can pick a somewhat difficult task and organize a small team to hunt. That's why we hope that at least one teacher can be there to protect us in secret. Only the eldest senior brother and I would know about the teacher and Apo's presence, the others Wooden and Apo's tea. As long as we can complete the task ourselves, the teacher doesn't have to intervene. They can just watch over us secretly. As for the reward, we can share half with the teacher. If the teacher ends up intervening to save us, we can even give the teacher 80%. It and Apo's. It's all part of our training." Mu Wenqing responded, "That and Apo's. It's a solution. I and Apo's. I'll discuss it with Teacher Guan. I and Apo's. I'll let you know tomorrow if it and Apo's is feasible." "Okay, thank you, teacher," Tang San said, taking his leave immediately. As he reached the door, he paused, turned back, and earnestly told Mu Wenqing, "Teacher Mu, I really think that if we don't face these kinds of challenges where our lives are in danger, we can't really grow strong." Tang San left, leaving Mu Wenqing deep in thought. The words that struck him most were Tang San and Apo's about flowers in a greenhouse being unable to withstand wind and rain. This was not the case for most human vassals. Let alone being kept safe in a greenhouse, their very survival was constantly threatened. However, due to their lacking innate talent, even though they had plenty of stimulus and made all the efforts they could, their growth was ultimately limited. But the children at the Redemption Society Academy were carefully chosen by the organization for their potential to become strong. Should these children then not face risks, without the pressure of life-threatening danger, can their growth indeed be smooth? This question had also been troubling several teachers, and for good reason. Those with the most talent among these children were also the slowest to improve. This was true for both Dubai and Apo's Celestial Fox transformation and Guli and Apo's Chrono Croc transformation. The problem was that such bloodline powers were too precious. Who would dare to gamble with them? Taking a deep breath, Mu Wenqing stood up, intent on discussing this issue with Guanlong Jiang. As Tang San left Mu Wenqing and Apo's room, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smirk. He knew he had most likely succeeded in persuading the teacher. Actually, it was already evident from Mu Wenqing and Apo's expression at the end of today and Apo's combat class. At that time, he had noticed a clear hint of disappointment in Mu Wenqing and Apo's gaze. When there's no comparison, there's no injury to one's pride. Tang San, a newcomer, shone in the two combat classes, overpowering all other students almost with ease. Even Wu Bingji, the senior brother, couldn't and Apo's defeat him. Guli, with his exceptional talent, lost as well. Tang San had practically schooled all the students of the Redemption Society, and there was no one who wasn't convinced by his abilities. This made the teacher responsible for the combat classes question his own teaching methods. Naturally, Tang San and Apo's suggestions for the combat class struck a chord in such times. After dinner, Tang San returned to his room to cultivate alone. Today and Apo's cultivation held particular significance to him. His understanding of devouring bloodline imprints was slowly improving, and Tang San realized that the powers of the imprints he devoured but did not integrate into his energy vortex would gradually dissipate. The time they remained in his body varied depending on the tier of the imprint. This meant that, apart from the position bloodline imprints, no matter how many types of imprints he absorbed, they would all gradually disappear until they were completely gone. and he had just made the decision that he no longer needed the Ironhide shield. The allure of the Chrono Croc transformation was too great for him, and Tang San had a hunch that its integration would truly change his understanding of this world. The tier of the Ironhide shield was not high, and its order was low as well. Tang San didn't an Oppose. T really mind discarding it as it wouldn't an Oppose. T affect his overall combat strength by much, only slightly weaken his defense. By contrast, if he put the Chrono Croc transformation to good use, he could get far greater results than anything Guli could achieve. Tang San and Oppo's spiritual power was significantly more potent than Guli and Oppo's. Although time could not actually be described in terms of elements, Tang San and Oppo's memories made the attributes of time very clear to him. To control time, strong spiritual power was essential. The bloodline power he had devoured from Guli could, at most, provide him with a third-tier Chrono Croc imprint rather than the second-tier original. Even so, with his mighty spiritual power, the effect he could achieve and the abilities he could use would undoubtedly be incomparable to Guli and Oppo's. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Tang San focused inwardly, observing the 5 imprints he already possessed. The Wind Wolf transformation imprint was still the most prominent among the 5 imprints. Although it wasn't all that high level, being only a 4th-tier demon bloodline, after absorbing the entire bloodline power of the Wind Wolf chieftain, Feng Xiong, it had reached the pinnacle of the 5th order with no room for further advancement. Tang San would need to cultivate his mysterious heaven technique to the 6th order, and devour a 6th order Wind Wolf's bloodline power to improve further. In addition, the remaining 4 imprints were the 4th order Flash Leopard imprint, the 3rd order Ironhide shield, the 4th order Discerning Eye, and the 2nd order Golden Rock transformation. Each of the 5 abilities had its strengths, but the bloodline tiers of the first 4 were rather low. After all, there hadn't been any opportunities to strengthen them, apart from the Discerning Eye. Tang San now had an idea. If the demonic god transformations he imprinted were the abilities of the gifted students from the Redemption Society around him, then evolving these imprints wouldn't be an issue. As long as his classmates and Oppo's strengths progressed, he could advance. This approach was much easier than searching for demons to devour and absorb. Take Chang Zicheng, whose Golden Rock transformation was at the 4th order. Although Tang San had only absorbed enough to give him a 2nd order imprint, he would eventually reach the 4th order through regular interaction and gradual absorption. If Chang Zicheng advanced to the 5th order, Tang San could naturally achieve it too. Therefore, helping Chang Zicheng in her cultivation was essentially helping himself. Similarly, Wu Bingji and Oppo's Ice Nymph transformation was already at the 6th order. If Tang San devoured his bloodline imprint, he could at least gradually rise to the peak of the 5th order and reach the 6th order once he broke through in his cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique. In fact, he could push his cultivation to advance by devouring Wu Bingji and Oppo's 6th order bloodline power. The only issue currently was the lack of space for new imprints. The Wind Wolf transformation and Oppo's ability was absolutely irreplaceable at this point. He had to continue using it, lest he risk revealing his full abilities. Tang San highly valued the Leopard Flash ability, which gave him speed akin to teleportation. Although the bloodline tier of the Flash Leopard clan also wasn't an Oppo's high, merely the same tier as the Wind Wolves, the Leopard Flash ability was incredibly handy. The Flash Leopard bloodline imprint only seemed less powerful because it didn't give him any other abilities. The 7th order Shanling had demonstrated considerable strength in Wind Wolf Town. Therefore, Tang San was reluctant to give up Leopard Flash, at least not until he found a better option. In the future, he planned to see if Leopard Flash could be merged with other demonic god transformations to produce a favorable mutation. The Ironhide shield, being the least used, was his choice for replacement. Its defense was decent, but it was only at the 3rd order. Given Tang San and Oppo's mysterious heaven technique and Ghost Shadow perplexing track, his defensive needs weren't and Oppo's that great. He initially planned to absorb defensive bloodlines from other types of demons for fusion and strengthening, but discarding it now was worthwhile for the sake of the Chrono Croc transformation. The potential for growth of the Discerning Eye went without saying. Tang San had already decided to get some of the Celestial Fox bloodline power from Dubai, even if it was only at the 1st order, to try to fuse it into that imprint. If that failed, he would find a way to reconstitute the discerning eye. Then he could try absorbing Wu Bingji and Appo's bloodline to prepare for his breakthrough to the sixth order of the mysterious heaven technique. There was not much to say about the golden rock transformation. The ability to fly was just too important. He would absorb bloodline power from Chang Zicheng, elevating his golden rock transformation to the fourth order. The arrangement of the 5 bloodline imprints was well settled. Tang San and Appo's path for the future was becoming increasingly well defined. It wasn't an Appo's just about elevating himself. He also needed to find ways to help those companions whose bloodline powers he had absorbed to improve as well. This mutual development strategy would enhance their collective strength and benefit everyone involved. Wu Bingji and Appo's perception was exceptionally high. Under Tang San's guidance, his understanding of the ice element had been elevated to a new level. Breaking through to the 7th order in the future was well within reach. Thus, the same applied to others. Wherever he could assist, he would. Although Tang San was no longer the God King he once was, his insights were far deeper than those of the Redemption Society and Appo's teachers, making him a far superior mentor to these students. Under the influence of Tang San and Appo's spiritual power, the Ironhide shield was gradually stripped away from his energy vortex. Then, with great care, Tang San drew over the white light orb representing Chrono Croc transformation, integrating it in the empty position. He had managed a rather intense bout of bloodline energy absorption today. The opportunity arose from Guli using the Chrono Croc transformation ability 3 times in succession, which brought his bloodline fluctuations to their peak, and at the same time drained his spiritual power. Thus, Tang San could afford to be more forceful with his absorption without being noticed, elevating the Chrono Croc transformation to the 3rd order. Though it was only the initial level of the 3rd order, it was still quite powerful. The Chrono Croc transformation slowly merged into the vortex, and the white imprint gradually stabilized. Suddenly, it was as if something exploded in Tang San and Appo's mind. Everything around him seemed to slow down in that instant. Even the bloodline fluctuations within his body and the operation of the mysterious heaven technique became slower. In the deepest depths of Tang San and Appo's sea of consciousness, a point of golden light, as small as a needle and Appo's tip, flickered in and out of existence. The flickering rate seemed to fluctuate, suddenly accelerating at times and then slowing down again, causing Tang San and Appo's mental power to fluctuate unstably with it. Various strange epiphanies continuously emerged in his mind. This was the essence of time. Had someone else experienced such a change, they might have risked mental breakdown. But not Tang San. As a former God King, he had a unique understanding of the mysteries of time. In addition, his son and grandson in that life also possessed powerful abilities related to time, and he had closely watched their growth. Calming himself down, he silently experienced the passage of time, feeling as though his body and spirit were being cleansed. He was being cleansed by the river of time that washed everything away. As the sensations of distortion and sluggishness gradually faded, Tang San suddenly felt as if his body had become much lighter. Indeed, it was a feeling of lightness. Even his previously somewhat emaciated physique seemed to have filled out a bit. His spirit, energy, and soul felt completely transformed. His cultivation level had not increased, nor had the strength of his body. Yet, the feeling was unmistakably different. After quietly contemplating his condition for a while, Tang San and Appo's gaze revealed a hint of unusual surprise. He now understood what had happened to him. As he merged with the Chrono Croc transformation imprint, the gentle cleansing of the river of time had cleansed him of the aura of his past life. Due to that bit of his divine consciousness, he had kept his memories after reincarnating on this plane. Yet, it was this precise method that led to the plane rejecting him as an outsider. Now, thanks to the level of his divine consciousness, the river of time had not erased his memories, but it had changed his aura. As a result, this plane automatically acknowledged his existence. His body felt lighter because the suppression of this plane had almost disappeared. The plane no longer wanted to expel him. It wasn't that the plane no longer rejected outsiders or that he was no longer an outsider. Rather, the Chrono Croc transformation, in a sense, had concealed him from this plane. It made the plane unable to sense that he was different from the other beings here. The effectiveness of this concealment would gradually diminish as his cultivation level increased. However, as long as the Chrono Croc transformation could keep up with his progression, it would continue to conceal him. Now that he was freed from the suppression of the plane, the most significant benefit for Tang San was that he could better absorb the spiritual energy of this world for his use, allowing him to cultivate and improve himself more efficiently. Undoubtedly, the benefits are immense, Tang San thought. Just as he had anticipated, the fusion of the Chrono Croc transformation had brought about a qualitative change in him. If one were to ask which of the 5 major demonic god transformation imprints within him would remain untouched in the future, it would be the Chrono Croc transformation. He naturally wouldn't swap it with something else, and it also couldn't and Ep6. Be merged with other bloodline powers to produce mutations. A mutation could improve the imprint's effects, but it could also cause whatever was masking his aura from the plane to disappear, and he could not take that chance. A smile formed at the corner of his mouth. Yes, this was definitely the right choice, he mused. He exhaled a long breath. Then he returned to a meditative state, absorbing the increasingly rich spiritual energy from the air, continuing his cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique. Muanqing and Ep6's efficiency was commendable. The following day, he called Tang San and Wu Bingji to his office, informing them that the academy had approved their proposal. They were allowed to form a group for real combat. The specifics of the arrangement were left to them, with instructions to keep it confidential from other students. They did not know that a teacher would secretly follow and protect them during the mission. As they left Muanqing and Ep6's office, Wu Bingji and Ep6's gaze toward Tang San changed once more. This kid is too damn capable, he thought. He managed to make the academy make an exception overnight. Are we choosing that one? Wu Bingji asked Tang San in a low voice. Yeah, let and Ep6's go with that one. It and Ep6's good. High risk, high reward, Tang San nodded without hesitation. How did you convince Teacher Mu? Wu Bingji asked. Tang San smiled and replied, I just told him the academy and Ep6's practical classes aren't and Ep6's enough. Without a life or death test, it and Ep6's hard to get everyone to reach their potential. By the way, why didn't an Ep6's you come to see me last night? Yesterday, I meditated and entered the state alone. I feel like my understanding of the ice element has deepened further. I should thank you. Since our talk that day, my cultivation has felt particularly good, as if I and Ep6's am gaining new insights daily. Tang San gave a thumbs up. Well, senior brother, that's just because your comprehension is great. Let and Ep6's not talk about this now. Who do you plan to bring if we're going to hunt a winged tiger? How many people should we organize for our team? We Don and Ep6's need a large group. You and I, senior brother Guli, senior sister Chang Zicheng. Oh, and let's also bring Dubai. The 5 of us should be enough. What? Wu Bingji looked at him dumbfounded. Just the 5 of us? Do you think we can defeat a 7th order winged tiger? Tang San shrugged. You can and Ep6's. Just look at the order of the winged tiger. Besides, I and Ep6's we already told Teacher Mu we are taking this mission to get experience. Should we bring everyone and gang up on it? Having more people ISN and Ep6's really better. I mean, the more people we have, the more chaotic things we'll get. It's going to be difficult to command them, and if more people have to be rescued, the teacher might not make it. I'd say fewer people make for better training. As long as we cooperate well and our abilities work well together, we can deal with a higher order demonic beast. Also, I really told the truth to Teacher Mu. The reason I want to try fighting a winged tiger ISN and Ep6's just for the money, but also because it can really help us get stronger. Don and Ep6's you want to advance to the 7th order? How can you do that without pressure? You'll be the main attacker in our group, so you'll also get the best experience and insights. Senior brother Gu Li can control the battlefield and senior sister Chang Zicheng can do the scouting and fly in to rescue people if necessary. They will both be really useful. Wu Bingji said that's fine, but what in Ep6's the deal with Dubai? Why bring him along? With his little strength, a winged tiger could kill him with a single slap. With a hint of mischief in his eyes, Tang San said, but Don and Ep6's forget the power of the celestial fox. He is our academy and Ep6's mascot. To hunt a winged tiger, we first have to find one. Luck is also crucial. Having him as our lucky charm is not a bad idea, don't you agree? Wu Bingji and Appo's mouth twitched slightly. In the end he said, but there and Appo's one issue I don and Appo's. Know if you and Appo's be considered. Leaving Zicheng and me aside, Dubai and Guli are the two with the top-tier bloodline talents in the academy. Even though their cultivation progresses slowly, the academy and Appo's focus on them has never changed. Would the teachers agree to let the two of them go out with us? Tang San said it should be fine. We have teachers secretly protecting us after all. Wu Bingji was helpless. You and Appo's quite something, aren't you? But they have to be willing to go too. Tang San said confidently, leave it to me. I and Appo's convinced them. Tang San and Appo's method of persuasion was not difficult. He first approached Dubai. Eldest senior brother and I are going on a hunting mission. The academy has approved it and we are taking you with us. You're taking me? What for? I don't think I can help you with anything. Dubai looked in surprise at Tang San, who, to his shock, seemed quite serious. For some reason he found Tang San more agreeable today, as if he had grown taller. Tang San earnestly said, No, you can do it. Your celestial fox vision will be of great help to us. We need you. Dubai was momentarily stunned, feeling a rush of excitement. They need me. They need me. As the academy and Appo's weakest, the feeling of being required for the first time was just fantastic. Okay, we and Appo's notify you when we leave. Then Tang San went to find Zicheng. Sister Zicheng, big brother Bingji and I are preparing for a hunting mission. He hopes you can join us, but he's too shy to ask. So I and Appo's am asking on his behalf. Will you join us? I and Appo's am in. Chang Zicheng and Appo's eyes sparkled. Finally Tang San approached Guli. Brother Guli, I have something to discuss with you. Guli looked at Tang San with a puzzled expression. He noticed something different about his junior brother, as if the latter was suddenly more pleasing to the eye. What is it? We have a class soon. Make it quick. He was still a bit down from his defeat to Tang San yesterday. Tang San said, here. He extended his hand toward Guli, showing an etherhorn coin in his palm. What's this? Guli didn't and Appo's accept it, looking at him in confusion. Tang San explained, Brother Gu, eldest senior brother and I are planning a hunting mission. We and Appo's like to invite you. Is this payment? Guli asked, puzzled. An etherhorn coin wasn't an Appo's that precious, but it was still not something people would just randomly hand out. Tang San shook his head. It and Appo's not a payment but a deposit. If you agree to join us on this mission, I and Appo's teach you how to defeat Brother Zhang Zabin when we return. If my method fails, you can take this etherhorn coin as compensation. If it works, you can give it back to me. Obviously, you and Appo's have a share in the mission and Appo's rewards. You can teach me how to beat Zhang Zabin? How is that possible? Guli said incredulously. Zhang Zabin was tough and resilient. Although Guli could gain the upper hand in the early stages of a fight, he found it impossible to maintain that advantage. Aside from Wu Bingji, Zhang Zabin was his most challenging opponent. As long as Guli was unable to break through his defense, all efforts were futile. Tang San shrugged and replied, the day I first came here, did you think I could fight eldest senior brother to a draw? Also, I put my money where my mouth is, no? I'm giving you a deposit. Alright, let an Appo's give it a try. Guli finally accepted the etherhorn coin. With this, the 5-person team was theoretically ready to set off. What? A winged tiger? Are you out of your mind? Muanqing almost jumped in disbelief as he looked at Tang San and Wu Bingji standing before him. Wu Bingji looked at Tang San with a sense of helplessness in his eyes as if to say, see, I knew it would be. Tang San, however, remained calm and seriously said to Muanqing, Teacher Aran and Appo's, you there to watch over us in secret? What and Appo's? The point of choosing a target that we know for sure we can beat. Because the opponent is powerful, we can feel the pressure and get better. Our cultivation levels aren't really there yet, but if we coordinate well, then we can definitely take on a 7th order opponent. Although Muanqing had been persuaded by Tang San the day before, he hadn't and Appo's expected Tang San to be so audacious as to set his sights on a winged tiger. Kid, do you realize what a winged tiger is? An adult winged tiger is 7th order, but 8th order ones exist as well. Hell, they can even reach the 9th order if they're lucky and they cultivate long enough. Can you predict what order the winged tiger you encounter will be? These creatures can fly, and their flying speed is quite formidable. If you can and oppose, T fight it, you won and oppose. T even be able to run away. Choosing a winged tiger ISN and oppose, T training, it and oppose. S more like trying to die an early death. You say you've gathered some teammates, did they agree to this? Tang San responded calmly, it would be hard for them to agree considering I haven and oppose. T told them which demonic beast we will hunt. They and oppose. LL find out when we find it. Muanqing and oppose. S gaze toward Tang San changed significantly, reflecting a mix of surprise and admiration. You and oppose. Re such a daring child. At 9 you and oppose. Re setting out to slay the winged tiger. What will you do at 19? Challenge the ancestral court? Just then a stern voice came from outside. Your bravery is admirable, yet bordering on folly. Guan Longjiang strode in, his gaze sharp as he looked at Tang San. Truly the fearlessness of the young and inexperienced. Are you not afraid that this is a march toward death? Tang San replied, we will take good care. Besides Aran and oppose, T the teachers secretly protecting us? You can and oppose. T just reap the benefits without risk. I don't think any truly strong person became strong just thanks to luck. Teacher Guan, this is a shortcut to awaken everyone in oppose. S bloodline power and awaken it fully. There are risks of course, but as long as we are careful and well prepared, I am very sure that we can manage. Nonsense, do you expect all the teachers to accompany you? We might as well do the combat training at the academy and beat you up ourselves, why wait for a demonic beast? Guan Longjiang retorted, clearly annoyed. At that moment another voice spoke up. Let them go. Guan Longjiang and Muanqing turned their gaze toward the source. It was none other than Zhang Haoshuan, the person in charge of the Redemption Society branch here, the mayor of the academy town, and, most importantly, their superior. With an odd expression on his face, Zhang Haoshuan approached Guan Longjiang and Muanqing. Tang San has a point. Hard pressure is a critical path for stimulating the growth of our youth. Perhaps our conservative approach is exactly why their growth has been so slow. Each of them possesses unique talent. We and oppose. We've been exploring how to utilize these talents, but what do we have to show for it? Our organization has accumulated knowledge over the years, but you and I know the pace of this accumulation is too slow. At this rate, it might take centuries for humanity to secure a space for survival. If we, as the predecessors Don and oppose, take risks, how can we create a better living space for our future generations? His arrival was a surprise to everyone but Tang San. Actually, before even approaching Muanqing, Tang San had already visited Zhang Haoshuan and shared his thoughts. Unlike Muanqing and Guan Longjiang, Zhang Haoshuan knew of Tang San and oppose's potential and multiple abilities. As the overseer of the entire academy town, he had a more far-sighted perspective. Finally, as Tang San's master, Zhang Haoshuan had much more faith in him than the other teachers had. But Guan Longjiang was still hesitant. I and oppose, LL go with them. Even if we find a 9th order winged tiger, I won't have any problem protecting them. Zhang Haoshuan waved his hand, preventing further objections. This is a critical attempt. If it succeeds, we can adapt it for the academy's teachings. Little Tang is right in that the flowers that grow in a greenhouse would not be able to survive wild winds and heavy rains. They will become the core talents of the society in the future. They need to be trained, and they need to be trained now. Well, the mayor was the mayor. He had the final word. What else could be said if he himself accompanied the group for the mission? Zhang Haoshuan looked at Tang San. When do you want to start? Tang San replied, let's do it tomorrow. I have researched with senior brother Bingji about the natural habitat of winged tigers in the mountains. It is pretty far away, so searching would take some time. If we were to make preparations today, we can leave tomorrow. Zhang Haoshuan pressed on. How many people would be going? I have already chosen the members for the team. Including eldest senior brother and I, we have a total of 5. I think that if our abilities complement each other well, we don't need more people. If there are too many, it's going to be difficult to coordinate. And if we need help, it's also going to be difficult for you to help us at the same time. All right then. We will depart first thing tomorrow morning. When Tang San and Wu Bingji had left, Guanlongjiang looked at Zhang Haoshuan saying, "You really dote on your disciple. To think you'd allow him to mess around. What if something bad happens?" "If anything happens, I will take full responsibility," Zhang Haoshuan said with no hesitation. Guanlongjiang said helplessly, "Well, I guess all we can do is be careful. You'll also have to prepare. Although demonic beasts are unable to reach the god level, you'll still need to be vigilant." Zhang Haoshuan shook his head. "You absolute armadillo. Sometimes you are just too cautious. I'll be honest, I really felt Tang San and Appo's words. To do extraordinary things, to allow these children to confront the demon and nymph clans in the future, we can't just train them in theory. If we don't test those theories in real life, then what's the point? Even if there are casualties along the way, as long as the final result is good, the experience we gain is precious and it and Appo's all worth it." Guanlongjiang smiled and retorted, "That and Appo's easy to say, but it hasn't and Appo's been easy for us to accumulate this much power and these great students. Anyway, you and Appo's the boss, so I and Appo's I'll listen to you. Should we invite Elder C to come along?" Zhang Haoshuan shook his head. "No need. We need him to stay here and take care of things. There might be trouble if he leaves this area." Classes cultivation, meals cultivation. The day hurried by. The team members confirmed by Tang San silently left the academy early the following day and gathered at the mountainside. Wu Bingji naturally was the team leader. The five took advantage of the faint dawn light and quietly headed toward the Kali Mountains. Wu Bingji led the way, followed by Gu Li. Cheng Zicheng activated her demonic god transformation and flew low above them. Du Bai was in the middle, with Tang San bringing up the rear. The five of them were very familiar with the path, so they entered the mountain range and quickly disappeared into the jungle. As the morning classes began, Guanlongjiang suddenly realized that things were off. "Hey, what in Appo's going on? Where are Du Bai and Gu Li?" He hadn't an Appo's asked Tang San and Wu Bingji yesterday about who they were taking with them. In his view, his good disciple, the senior brother of the academy, was always calm and wouldn't Appo's act recklessly. They were going to hunt a winged tiger, so they would naturally choose the strongest students as teammates. But early this morning as classes began, he discovered that was not the case at all. In addition to the two stars Cheng Zicheng, Du Bai, and Gu Li had also left. Whether it and Appo's the Golden Rock transformation, Chrono Croc transformation, or Celestial Fox transformation, they were basically the top talents among the students. Yet there wasn't an Appo's even a single fifth order among them. 2 fourth orders and 1 third order with 0 combat ability. What in Appo's going on? What are Tang San and Wu Bingji thinking? Do they know that if something happens to Du Bai and Gu Li, the headquarters will tear them apart? Talent-wise, Du Bai and Gu Li were not only the top students here, but also among the top in the entire Redemption Society and had the greatest expectations placed on them. Why had they been sent to Kali City? Because it was far from the central authority and relatively less likely to encounter problems. And now they're out hunting powerful demons beyond their level. What if they die? Who will take responsibility? Even Zhang Haoshuan can and Appo's handle that responsibility. Guanlongjiang panicked at the academy. When Zhang Haoshuan, who was secretly following, saw that the 5 quietly climbing the mountain were these 5 youngsters, he was also stunned. He knew that Tang San was the leader of this mission, but this disciple of his was just too damn daring. Taking Cheng Zicheng and Gu Li was one thing. They were both 4th order with unique abilities, and Gu Li and Appo's Chrono Croc transformation was powerful in terms of battlefield control. But why bring a mascot? Du Bai lacked both physical prowess and combat ability. Forget about him helping them, could they even take care of him in a fight? In fact, Guanlongjiang and Zhang Haoshuan were not the only ones surprised. Right before the team set off, Gu Li and Cheng Zicheng were also stunned to see Tang San bringing Du Bai along. Of course they didn't and Appo's say anything because they were unaware of the exact goal of the trip. In their minds, since even Du Bai was brought along, the demon they were hunting couldn't and Appo's be too strong. Wu Bingji, who was leading the way, felt a bit nervous. He could vaguely guess what kind of reaction his own master, Guanlongjiang, would have upon learning about the composition of their team for this mission. Little Tang, oh little Tang, if it weren't and Oppos, T for that icicle control technique you promised me, I wouldn't and Oppos, T have joined you in this reckless adventure. Wu Bingji and Oppos, S only reassurance was Zhang Haoshuan and Oppos, S secret protection. The mayor is a ninth-order powerhouse. With him taking care of us from the shadows, this mission should be safe, right? Right? The group progressed quickly. This wasn't an Oppos, Tia physical training session. Everyone could use their demonic god transformations and had no additional weights. In addition, having trekked the mountain range many times over, everyone knew the path rather well. Quickly, they passed through the umbrella-covered area and gradually delved deeper into the Kali Mountains. What an Oppos! S our target this time? Dubai asked, somewhat out of breath. His stamina was still a weakness. Tang San smiled and said, let and Oppos S keep a little mystery. You and Oppos I'll naturally know once we see it. Let and Oppos S discuss tactics for dealing with demons as we walk. Wu Bingji turned around and asked, what in Oppos S your plan? Although Tang San was young, his two real battles with Wu Bingji and his victory over Gu Li earned him the recognition of his peers for his ability to control the pace of the battle. Tang San said, if we encounter a demonic beast, senior brother, you will be the main force. You need to block the beast and Oppos S attack head-on. While you do that, you must also use the ice element to slow it down and disrupt its movements, so it cannot use its combat strength properly. Senior brother Gu Li, your task is the most important. While eldest senior brother is blocking the demon, you need to find the right opportunity to use the Chronocroc transformation to hold it still and create an opportunity for us. We can handle even stronger demonic beasts if you control the Chronocroc transformation well. Senior sister Changzi, you are in charge of scouting, and we're counting on you especially to detect if groups of demonic beasts are approaching us. We can easily handle individual beasts, but encountering a group would be a problem. Your scouting is vital, and once the battle starts, you must harass the demonic beast that the senior brother is blocking. You need to protect and help him. What about me? What in Oppos S my role? Dubai hurriedly asked Tang San. Tang San said, your role is also significant. Your celestial fox vision can observe destiny, and we will need you to use it to choose the best direction for us. During the battle, you must also use the celestial fox vision to guide destiny, ensuring luck is on your side. I will choose a safe location for you, and you just need to control destiny from the shadows. The most substantial ability of the celestial fox vision was to control and guide destiny. Such a unique attribute was something Tang San had never seen in his previous life. Destiny is an elusive concept, often called the will of heaven in mundane terms. The celestial fox vision and Oppos S ability to observe and guide destiny may initially seem insignificant, but its impact, especially at higher levels, was incredible. This was why the celestial fox transformation was considered a first-class bloodline power. The celestial fox Great Demon Emperor was, in fact, one of the three most influential characters among the demon and nymph races combined. This was why Dubai was so highly valued. Naturally, at lower levels, the destiny guided and observed by the celestial fox vision was limited, and its effectiveness was minuscule. Additionally, Dubai's combat ability was lacking at best, but having some ability was better than having none. After years of cultivating and accumulating numerous resources, Dubai still possessed a third-order celestial fox vision, so he could definitely provide some assistance. Other students had never really felt Dubai to be helpful since he was by far the weakest in combat. However, Tang San and Oppos S perception was different. Since Tang San arrived at the Redemption Academy, Dubai had almost subconsciously been around him. Apart from the time spent cultivating in their rooms at night, Dubai actually spent most of his time around Tang San. This in itself indicated something significant. This child of destiny gravitated toward him, and it was clearly not because he could detect Tang San and Oppos S divine consciousness, something even see Rukuden and Oppos T do. No, it was undoubtedly because he could vaguely sense Tang San and Oppos S destiny power and drew close to Tang San so he could borrow from the latter's destiny. Dubai had told Tang San more than once that he hoped to be his guardian. Dubai had never shared this with anyone else, and yet he had expressed this idea to Tang San just days after meeting him. Dubai could subconsciously sense Tang San and Appo's potential, a part of the celestial fox vision and Appo's effect. Dubai himself might not have fully realized this, but his subconscious still made him feel close to Tang San. Therefore, from Tang San and Appo's perspective, Dubai could indeed sense destiny, follow its course, and guide changes in fortune. Having him along was very much like having a mascot, serving the purpose of attracting good luck and averting misfortune. Dubai and Appo's decision to come with them without hesitation was not just based on trust. After all, they had known each other for only 2 days. Where could such faith come from so quickly? Apart from the joy of being acknowledged, it was because he could feel that being with Tang San would bring him the favor of destiny. Thus, while the teachers might not have noticed, Dubai and Appo's celestial fox vision gradually influenced his life trajectory. With his keen perception, Tang San noticed this, which was why he decided to bring Dubai along. The people Tang San had called out this time were those he hoped would improve their cultivation and help him improve his in turn. Tang San intended to grab Dubai's celestial fox vision sooner or later, with Wu Bingji and Appo's ice nymph transformation as an alternative. He already had Cheng Zicheng and Appo's golden rock transformation and Guli and Appo's chrono croc transformation, so he was going for the full collection. Cultivating them was akin to cultivating his abilities. Why not go for it? With the stability he had now and the recent enhancement of his strength, Tang San was gradually regaining a sense of control over his own destiny, something he had been sorely lacking in this life. Neither Muanqing nor Guanlong Jiang, or even Zhang Haoshuan realized that Tang San's words were unusually persuasive when he argued his point. Normally, the teachers Wuden and Appo's have let him go after the mighty winged tiger, since they were well aware of the risks involved. The fact that they agreed was actually thanks to Tang San's divine consciousness. Although he had yet to find anything that could directly strengthen it, and it was still lacking quantity-wise, with the growth of his spiritual power and the nourishment it provided to his divine consciousness, it started to imbue some of the qualities of a god-king to his sea of consciousness. Tang San's growth had truly accelerated after he successively integrated the Golden Rock transformation and the Chrono Croc transformation. And this hunting expedition for the winged tiger was an opportunity for him from several points of view. Acquiring resources for cultivation, earning money, helping his teammates improve, and improving himself. They walked until midday, and Dubai was already feeling dizzy from fatigue, so they decided to rest. The Kali Mountains were vast, and even those with good demonic god transformations would take up to 2 weeks to cross the mountain range. They found an open hillside with a good view and rested. They took out their dry food and water to replenish their physical energy. Leaning against a tree trunk, Dubai rubbed his legs, saying, "I and Appo's V heard that when the Celestial Fox clan travels, they are surrounded by numerous guards and powerful beings. They ride in carriages pulled by mighty demons, covering the sky and followed by rainbows. You know, as an inheritor of the Celestial Fox transformation, asking for a litter ISN and Appo's too much, right? That way we could move faster." Cheng Zicheng, standing atop a tree branch and surveying the surroundings, retorted, "What nonsense are you thinking about? A litter? If you can and Appo's keep up, we might as well leave you behind as food for the demons. I think they'd find you pretty tasty." "Zicheng, why are you always so heartless toward me? Are you acting when I'm around because you're secretly in love with me? If that's the case, just say it. Who knows, I might actually consider giving you a chance," Dubai said, grinning cheekily. Guli and Appo's mouth twitched. "Looks like you and Appo's not tired enough if you still have the energy to spout crap. You're still a kid, what do you know about love?" "Zicheng is right, you and Appo's just talking nonsense. Senior brother, look at them. They and Appo's all bullying me. Aren't you going to do something about it?" Dubai complained to Wu Bingji. Wu Bingji, who was studying the map with Tang San, glanced back at Dubai with an eyebrow raised. "Be quiet." "Yes, sir." Dubai immediately shut his mouth, looking aggravated. Tang San couldn't and Appo's help but chuckle. This guy was a real mascot. Not only was he a lucky talisman but also quite a character. "We are here right now, and if we keep going in this direction, we will enter their habitat in about a day and a half. But the area is vast. Generally, they like to move around mountain streams, guarding water sources," Wu Bingji explained, pointing at the simple map in his hand. Tang San nodded. Then we and Appos LL continued to move in that direction. Let and Appos see what happens as we go. Wu Bingji raised his voice. Everyone, we have now entered the active area of demonic beasts. We could encounter any one of them at any time. You must be careful and stay on guard. Tang San observed the surrounding mountains. The mountains were lush and green with few bare spots, and even on the cliffs there was vegetation. The rich spiritual energy of this world indeed made it suitable for the growth of various life forms. After resting for a while, just as they were about to set off again, Dubai suddenly frowned and rubbed his eyes. Tang San had been observing him, so these minor gestures did not escape his attention. Dubai and Appos' celestial fox vision was only at the third order, meaning he couldn't and Appos' see changes in destiny but only had a weak sense of it. Even the teachers at the academy didn't and Appos' know how to use the celestial fox vision, as Dubai was a unique case even in the vast redemption society. But Tang San had kept a close eye on Dubai since the beginning, and now that he knew about the celestial fox vision, he understood. Many of Dubai's seemingly random actions were in fact subconscious responses to this particular sense. Tang San approached him and asked, "What in Appos is wrong? I feel a bit off." "I guess I and Appos am just tired," Dubai replied with a frown, feeling a bit of soreness in his eyes and an inexplicable sense of oppression in his heart. Hearing this, Tang San and Appos' expression turned serious. "Senior brother, be on guard." He looked up and met the eyes of Chang Zicheng, who was high up on a tree branch. Hearing Tang San and Appos' warning, Chang Zicheng instinctively started scanning the surroundings. It was at that moment that the unexpected occurred. Without any warning, the ground not far from Guli suddenly burst open with a bang, and a dirt yellow spike shot straight at Guli and Appos' chest. The change happened incredibly fast. Without Tang San and Appos' timely warning, everyone would have been caught off guard. But with their alertness instantly raised, both Tang San and Wu Bingji reacted immediately. A strong gust of wind hit Guli and Appos' side, pushing him sideways. At the same time, an ice shield appeared in front of where Guli had been standing. With a loud bang, the ice shield was pierced by the dirt yellow spike and the pieces were flung away. The next moment, a figure emerged from the ground. It was a somewhat strange-looking demonic beast, about 3 meters long and with a sizable dirt yellow tail. Its entire body was covered in scales, emitting a dirt yellow halo. As it turned out, this spike-like tail was what had launched the attack on Guli. It and Appos' a fisher lizard. Be careful. It and Appos' at least fifth order. Wu Bingji and Appos' voice rang out. He was definitely the strongest among them in terms of theoretical knowledge, and he instantly identified the beast. The fisher lizard and Appos' large tail slammed onto the ground at that moment. The dirt yellow light surrounding it suddenly intensified and the lizard merged into the ground, causing the entire hillside to shake as if in an earthquake. "Freeze!" Guli shouted. The violently shaking hilltop suddenly became still for a moment. Guli's shout wasn't an Appos' because his chronocroc transformation required vocalization, but to alert his companions. This was their first time venturing out together for training, so there wasn't an Appos' much coordination among them. Thus, on their way, Tang San had already discussed with everyone that they should call out their abilities when using them so their companions would know what they were doing and act accordingly. The chronocroc transformation was indeed powerful. Even though this fisher lizard was more advanced in cultivation than Guli, it couldn't and Appos' escape the instant time freeze. In that instant of freezing, Dubai had already moved to the other side of the large tree, while Chang Zicheng had already taken flight from her tree branch. Tang San and Wu Bingji directly charged towards the fisher lizard. This was Tang San and Appos' prior arrangement. In the face of strong enemies, Dubai was to stay as far from the battlefield as possible, while Chang Zicheng was responsible for observing the battlefield to see if there were other enemies. Guli would assist everyone by controlling the pace of the battle, while Tang San and Wu Bingji took on the opponent. The latter was supposed to be the one giving orders, but he had benefited just too much from Tang San's advice and now fully trusted his decisions. Tang San had already explained this many times on the road, so everyone now reacted instinctively. From Wu Bingji's hands, his usual icicles flew one after another. heading straight for the lizard. However, what Tang San deployed was not his token wind blades. He vigorously rubbed his hands before him as he rushed forward. In an instant, his eyes turned a deep green, and with the driving force of the mysterious heaven technique, a gust of wind surged up instantaneously. The purpose of this wind was not actually to harm the enemy. The icicles arrived first, exploding into ice blossoms on the lizard and Ep6's hide. The fisher lizard had a formidable defense. Most Earth attribute demonic beasts in fact excelled at defense. Although the fisher lizard was certainly in some pain, it was not truly injured, and it only had some indentations and white spots on the scales where it was hit. The ground beneath it cracked open, emitting a yellow glow as the lizard was about to burrow into the earth. But at that moment a green whirlwind swept in, almost instantly lifting the fisher lizard, which had just broken free from Guli's control and was preparing to burrow into the ground. Yes, Tang San and Ep6's wind has arrived. The fisher lizard was of the earth attribute, and it was naturally adept at using the ground to hide itself and launch stealth attacks, an ability known as earth evasion. In addition, its hide was tough and it had formidable defenses. Many of the earth attribute demonic beasts were herbivores, but this lizard was a carnivore, preying on various small demonic beasts for food. It was evident why Tang San and his group were targeted. In the eyes of demonic beasts, humans were nothing but a nice, tender meal. Demonic beasts weren't and Ep6's as intelligent as demons, but their hunting instincts were much more potent. Nearly all demonic beasts were dangerous. Earth attribute demonic beasts relied on the ground for most of what they did. Their combat ability was significantly reduced once separated from it. Therefore, when Wu Bingji initiated the attack and Guli took control, Tang San and Ep6's first thought was to separate the beast from the ground. A beast, with cultivation definitely at the 5th order or even close to the 6th, was not easy to kill due to its strong defense. Therefore, the first step was to neutralize its advantage. The fisher lizard couldn't fly. It thrived on the ground, able to move by earth evasion anytime and even attack by harnessing the ground's power. But once off the ground, it and Ep6's not much of a threat. When Wu Bingji saw the fisher lizard floating in the air, held up by Tang San and Ep6's whirlwind, a flash of admiration appeared in his eyes. Such precise judgment. He knew that his own judgment was sound, but even he couldn't and Ep6's have reacted correctly in the nick of time as Tang San had. Otherwise, his best move would have been to use ice spikes to lift the opponent from the ground. By now, Tang San was controlling the fisher lizard's levitation at will, and Wu Bingji knew exactly what to do next. A trail of ice formed under his feet, and Wu Bingji and Ep6's speed surged. He instantly glided beneath the fisher lizard. Freeze! Guli and Ep6's second command came. As long as there wasn't a massive difference in cultivation, the effect of the chrono-croc transformation was practically absolute. Who can contend with time? Just as the fisher lizard tried to resist, it froze again. In the next instant, Wu Bingji and Ep6's hands had already struck it. Presumably at the peak of the 5th order, the fisher lizard had a cultivation level similar to Feng Xiong, the wind wolf lord whom Tang San had killed. However, its lack of intelligence made it far less of an opponent. Actually, compared to demons, demonic beasts were generally weaker precisely because of this. There were exceptions, but they were rare. Thanks to his 6th order cultivation and the enhancement of the 6th order ice nymph transformation and ice elemental physique, Wu Bingji's gentle touch instantly caused the lizard to turn into a lizard-shaped icicle. The fisher lizard indeed had solid defenses and was generally resistant to all kinds of attacks. However, faced with this incredible cold, it immediately stiffened. At the same time, wind blades began to descend from the sky. 18 consecutive wind blades dropped one after the other, looking like a green bridge in the air. Each wind blade struck the exact same spot with incredible precision. The fisher lizard and Ep6's defense was formidable. Even facing the 100 birds homing strike powered by wind energy, it withstood until the 8th strike before the scales on its nape were cracked open. As it tried to struggle, Guli uttered the 3rd freeze. And then, there was no then. The head of this formidable fisher lizard flew. Blood spurted wildly, staining the solid ice red. Its body, over 3 meters long, fell to the ground. This demonic beast that had cultivated all the way to the peak of the 5th order was now dead beyond doubt. The entire battle had lasted only about 10 seconds. After using time freeze 3 times in 10 seconds, Guli and Appo's face turned pale, but his eyes were filled with excitement. Killed. Just like that? In the ordinary human understanding, humans of the same level were inferior to demonic beasts, which in turn were inferior to demons. This was due to the level of their physical abilities. Previously, encounters with demonic beasts had been rare for Guli and his team. Even when they did occur, battles were almost always under the guidance of a master. Today, just a few students had killed a demonic beast evidently stronger than all of them apart from Wu Bingji, and they'd done it very smoothly at that. It was their first time. Even Chang Zicheng, who hadn't Appo's directly participated in the battle but rather observed from the air, was visibly excited. The moment after the fisher lizard fell, Wu Bingji immediately turned to look at Tang San. Their eyes met and Tang San gave him a thumbs up. Wu Bingji smiled and returned the gesture. Though Wu Bingji was the most advanced in cultivation in their team, he was well aware that the outcome of this battle would have been quite different without Tang San. Even with Guli and Appo's Chrono Croc transformation and time freeze, stopping the defensively strong fisher lizard from burrowing into the ground and scampering away would have been a tall order. However, Tang San and Appo's whirlwind had followed Guli's ability seamlessly, separating the lizard from the ground. Ideally, Guli should have handled this alone in order to allow Tang San to focus solely on attacking, but he hadn't Appo's done what he had to do in time. Luckily, Tang San had compensated for it. In any case, this makeshift team had just taken down a peak 5th order demonic beast in just 10 short seconds. That was an indisputable fact. The fisher lizard was also on the Academy and Appo's task list, offering significant rewards, 1 Naturi coin per lizard. Scales were precious, but it was notoriously difficult to kill, as it would burrow away at the first sign of trouble, making it hard even for the strong to capture. Yet today they had managed to kill one. Amazing, Dubai exclaimed, jumping out from behind a tree, his face alight with excitement. Having not participated in the battle, he was unaware of the details. In his view, it was naturally the strength of his companions. The fisher lizard had been defeated basically in the time it had taken Guli to yell 3 words. Impressive, Guli said, returning to the group and giving Tang San a thumbs up. He was not stupid by any means, and he could see who had played the most significant role in the battle. Tang San smiled and said, actually, the credit should go to Brother Dubai. Him? Why him? Chang Zicheng questioned with a hint of dissatisfaction. It was clear that she was regretting not participating in the battle. Tang San explained because he was actually the one who detected the enemy. Brother Dubai and Appo's celestial fox vision grants him foresight. It's not all that great because his cultivation is not quite there yet, but when he feels discomfort, it usually means that there's some kind of danger approaching. That and Appo's why I told you to be alert just now. Otherwise, that sudden ambush could have injured any of us really badly. Guli nodded, still somewhat shaken. He hadn't Appo's had time to unleash his Chrono Croc transformation, and in his normal human form, a strike from the fisher lizard and Appo's tail could very well have killed him on the spot. Dubai blinked, questioning his own importance. He wasn't Appo's too sure about it. Tang San suggested to Wu Bingji, Senior brother, our team is 1 unit. How about we split all our gains equally once we return? Wu Bingji looked at him and nodded without hesitation. That and Appo's only fair. If I remember correctly, the fisher lizard is worth 1 Naturi coin. Wow, we and Appo's. Re-rich, we and Appo's. Re-rich. Dubai danced excitedly around the fisher lizard and Appo's corpse. Wu Bingji shook his head in mild amusement and said to Chang Zicheng, please keep watch for now. I and Appo's take care of the fisher lizard and Appo's corpse. Wu Bingji raised his left hand as he spoke, and only then did Tang San notice a bracelet about 2 fingers wide on his wrist. The bracelet had intricate patterns and emitted faint energy fluctuations. A storage bracelet? Tang San almost immediately sensed the spatial elemental fluctuations from it. As expected of Wu Bingji, Tang San had been wondering whether they should leave the demonic beast in Appo's corpse for their teacher to collect later, as he didn't in Appo's want to reveal his storage bag just like that. As it turned out, The eldest senior brother was well prepared. Wu Bingji had a storage bracelet. A flash of light from the bracelet and several large bottles appeared. Next, he did something simple. He bled the beast. The blood of a demonic beast was one of the most valuable parts of its body. Even diluted, soaking in demonic beast blood could aid the cultivation of demons of the same attribute. It was the same for humans who cultivated the demonic god transformation. The blood of a fifth-order demonic beast could fetch a decent price. He was letting blood and collecting the corpse. Wu Bingji didn't and Appos. He asked for help handling it swiftly. He then stored the fisher lizard and Appos' corpse in his storage bracelet and had everyone help clean up the traces on the ground. Collecting the body and erasing the tracks took about half an hour. Let and Appos' rest a bit more before we continue, Wu Bingji commanded the team. The rest was mainly for Guli, as the 3 consecutive uses of chronocroc transformation had significantly drained both his spiritual power and his bloodline power. The consumption from such continuous usage was far greater than usual, but the effect was also tremendous. Even though they had to rest more than they had expected, everyone and Appos' spirits were high. In less than a day since they had set out, they had hunted a fifth-order demonic beast and earned a Naturi coin. The share for each person was substantial, much faster than making money through ordinary tasks. Even if they were to return immediately, it would still be a significant profit. Previously, Gu Li, Dubai, and Chang Zicheng had been curious about the goal of their mission. But Tang San and Wu Bingji didn't and Appos' reveal it, simply telling them they would know when they arrived. Now they no longer asked, as the ease with which they killed a peak fifth-order demonic beast had inevitably boosted their confidence. Dubai even fantasized about hunting 10 or 8 demonic beasts to make a fortune and buying precious materials to consume, hoping to break through the fourth order. Chang Zicheng and Gu Li were almost as excited as Dubai, but Tang San and Wu Bingji were much calmer. Wu Bingji pondered how he could have been more useful in the previous battle, while Tang San silently meditated and cultivated. He didn't and Appos' attempt to devour the demonic beast in Appos' bloodline power. One reason was that the bloodline power of a demonic beast was more chaotic than a demon and Appos', so it likely wouldn't be as easy to digest. More importantly, if he did something like that in front of his companions and the demonic beast turned into a dried corpse, how would he explain it? He didn't and Appos' want to arouse their suspicions. From the previous battle, it was evident that Wu Bingji and Gu Li lacked some combat experience. Wu Bingji was somewhat better, but Gu Li was indeed inexperienced. If their coordination was in sync with their current strength, Gu Li would only need one well-timed freeze to allow his companions to take down the enemy. However, this was a good start. Teamwork is not something that can appear just because people want to, it takes time to develop. Tang San didn't and Appos' say much. At this point, no amount of theory would substitute for actual combat. The demonic beasts they would encounter this time weren't limited to just one. Since the fisher lizard hadn't and Appos' exerted enough pressure on them, their understanding probably wasn't an Appos' unclear. Once they encountered stronger demonic beasts, their insights into actual combat would naturally become more apparent. It was already afternoon when they fully recovered. The 5 set off again, continuing to delve deeper into the Kali mountain range. Not long after they left, a figure landed on the hillside where they had been before. Zhang Haoshuan gazed at their departing figures, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Good. Tang San and Appos' combat capabilities aren't disappointing in real life either. What would the battle have looked like if it had been another fifth-order student instead of Tang San? They could have indeed coped, given that Wu Bingji was a sixth-order cultivator. But against the fisher lizard, the likely outcome would have been them being caught off guard and the lizard escaping, probably after injuring a team member in a surprise attack. From the current situation, it seemed that sending them out together on this mission was correct. Tang San and Appos' most significant role was in coordinating the team. With him, the team and Appos' overall strength had clearly risen by a good margin. Where could this kid have gotten this kind of combat experience? Could it be that there really are people born with innate knowledge in this world? Zhang Haoshuan thought that in terms of pure bloodline talent, Tang San might not even rank in the top 50 among the young people he had seen. However, regarding overall abilities and temperament, he was a solid second. At least that was how it seemed for now. He just hoped that Tang San could maintain such a rapid pace of growth in the future. All bushcraft enthusiasts know this. In the mountains and forests there and Ep6, never a shortage of food. For those familiar enough with the Kali mountain range, surviving in the wilderness was not a problem, especially under the leadership of Wu Bingji. Picking wild fruits and fetching mountain spring water allowed them to hydrate and replenish their energy. On their way into the mountains, the number of demonic beasts increased, and at the same time Chang Zicheng and Ep6's role became more important. Her ability allowed her to do low-altitude reconnaissance, and whenever she spotted groups of demonic beasts, the group would go around them to avoid a clash. Dubai was initially excited about hunting more demonic beasts, but Wu Bingji vetoed his suggestion instantly. Demonic beasts had a ridiculously keen sense of smell. Once the scent of blood was in the air, it could and would attract others. Killing a weaker demonic beast would inevitably result in attracting a stronger one, or more. A characteristic of the demonic beasts on the demon continent was that they could not become gods. This was likely related to their intelligence. Any demonic beast capable of cultivating spiritual intelligence would have transformed into a demon already. Therefore, the Ninth Order was the peak for demonic beasts, and there weren't many demonic beasts that could cultivate to the Ninth Order just through their innate physical abilities and bloodline strength. Thus, there weren't that many powerful beings among demonic beasts. Of course, this was compared to the demon and nymph races. Demonic beasts were still formidable beings from humans' perspective. As the group moved forward, they occasionally took down some weaker demonic beasts. Because they could slay them quickly and preserve the body whole, there was less hassle in dealing with them, and if they didn't process the carcass on the spot, the smell of blood wasn't that much of an issue. The first night arrived. They once again found a higher ground and a large tree. Staying in the trees at night was much safer than on the ground. They were all a little trust is forged through trials, and with Tang San around, everything seemed to flow smoothly as they went through these trials. He became an excellent facilitator, always appearing where he was most needed and helping unite everyone into a cohesive force. In his previous life, Tang San during his youthful days was the control system soul master and the soul of his team. In this life, although his ability to control Wazn and Ep6 as great as before, his combat experience made leading Wu Bingji and the others an easy task. He could enable everyone to perform at 120% of their capabilities with him there. Wu Bingji felt this the most deeply. As the one with the highest cultivation in the team, he could always unleash his power to the fullest in battle, experiencing a thrilling sense of combat. He even felt as though his strength had improved. But he understood it wasn't an Ep6 an actual increase in his power. Rather, he was able to use his power more effectively under Tang San and Ep6's coordination, which was all the more valuable. The five found a higher ground to rest as night fell on the second day. Right after dinner, Guli approached. Little Tang, Guli nudged him, winking and grinning meaningfully. After spending 2 days together, Tang San realized that Guli and Ep6's personality was actually lively, even though he usually appeared more grounded. Once he was out of the teachers and Ep6's sight, his true nature gradually emerged. Both Guli and Dubai had the burden of great expectations placed upon them by their teachers. Under this pressure, Dubai found it particularly challenging to improve. At the same time, Guli had at least cultivated his chrono-croc transformation to the Fourth Order, thus facing even greater pressure from the teachers. Tang San smiled. "What are you doing, Brother Gu? You know, didn't an Ep6 we agree on it last night?" Guli chuckled. Tang San of course knew what he wanted. Wu Bingji had also come over. Although Tang San was to offer advice to Guli, the benefits Wu Bingji had received from Tang San were also substantial. Just like Guli had drawn some insights from Tang San's advice to his eldest senior brother, the latter could also gain some ideas from the advice Guli received. Chang Zicheng, who was on the treetop, and Dubai, who hadn't Ep6 climbed up yet, also joined them. During the day in Ep6's battle, Wu Bingji had already started using the flicking dart technique to launch icicles. The penetrating power of the icicles had at least doubled. Combined with the compression of ice elemental energy, the power and range had both significantly increased. This was still considering he wasn't all that proficient yet. Wu Bingji was confident that if he could compress the icicles into ice needles in the future, it would be an incredibly lethal technique. Seeing Tang San and Appo's formidable use of wind blades, he was very confident that this flicking dart technique was the way to go. Du Bai and Chang Zicheng had also found out about what had happened the night before. Seeing Tang San about to guide Gu Li today, they were naturally interested and prepared to listen. Chang Zicheng had also received a few pointers from Tang San, but those were about practical combat experience unrelated to cultivation. At this moment, he looked curiously at the youngest among them, surrounded by his senior brothers, wondering how Tang San would advise Gu Li. Tang San told Gu Li, "Brother Gu, your chronocroc transformation ability is powerful. It's practically absolute, considering that you can even influence those whose cultivation is higher than yours. The strength of your bloodline influences the power of the chronocroc transformation. The inherited bloodline strength. I think there in Appo's more than just one way to enhance it. Increasing the bloodline concentration would definitely work, but for such a rare demonic god transformation as yours, it has to be difficult. But there in Appo's another method I think you could try." Gu Li was startled. He had thought Tang San would teach him some techniques to deal with Zhang Zabin, but he didn't and Appo's expect Tang San to advise him on cultivating chronocroc transformation. The teachers didn't and Appo's have any suitable methods, and they could only advise him to continually stimulate his bloodline and enhance it by absorbing spiritual energy. What other suitable methods could he have? Therefore, after hearing Tang San and Appo's words, a hint of disappointment flickered in his eyes. Tang San, seemingly oblivious to the change in his expression, continued. "Besides increasing bloodline concentration, generally, our demonic god transformation cultivation involves stimulating the bloodline. This makes sense, of course, but the thing is, do we really know exactly how to stimulate the bloodline to the maximum? Brother Gu, I think I know where you should start. You know that when you control the chronocroc transformation, you must use spiritual power to stimulate the bloodline power. Compared to other demonic god transformations, your chronocroc transformation demands more spiritual energy. Time is a mysterious thing. It's always there, but it's hard to grasp. They say that no one can take a pill for regret, because what's done can't be undone. For now, your ability may not reverse time, but it can at least freeze it. In the future, when you grow stronger, you might even become able to make time flow backward. I think that in Appo's the ultimate strength of the chronocroc transformation. With that in mind, you must focus on improving your spiritual power. The easiest way to train it is to use it until it's drained, even overdrawn. When it recovers, it will improve. You should still cultivate by stimulating your bloodline, but at the same time you should concentrate more on your spiritual power. When your spiritual energy is strong enough, you will also find it easier to stimulate your bloodline energy. Basically, I believe the key part of the chronocroc transformation is actually the mental part, not the bloodline part. If you focus on this, you might be able to push your cultivation all the way up to the peak of the 6th order. /ref, the Ross here say peak of the 9th order, but due to reasons explained in a later chapter, this has been changed to 6/ref. Tang San truly valued the chronocroc transformation. Without any teachers around, he didn't and Appo's care if others wondered about his numerous ideas. He still wanted to share the proper way of cultivation with Gu Li. Enhancing the chronocroc transformation wasn't and Appo's just about stimulating bloodline energy or merely increasing bloodline power. It required continuous mental stimulation to transform the sea of consciousness. To master the essence of time control, nothing was more important than possessing strong spiritual energy or even divine consciousness. Thus, the more powerful the spiritual energy, the more frequently the chronocroc transformation could be used. The bloodline would also undergo a transformative change when stimulated by this powerful spiritual energy. Upon hearing this, the disappointment in Gu Li and Appo's eyes turned to surprise. Is it possible to enhance spiritual power just by abusing it? Tang San replied, it and Appo's kind of a barbaric method, but it's simple and it works. You might want to try it. This way of cultivating spiritual energy applies to anyone. Dubai, you could give it a try as well. Strong spiritual power will probably be good for your celestial fox vision as well. Of course, we shouldn't and Appo's try this while we're on a mission. Once you completely empty your spiritual energy storage, it'll take you a long time to recover. Tang San didn't and Oppose. T mentioned that this rudimentary cultivation method was only really usable in places with abundant energy, like the demon continent. Here, the energy of heaven and earth was incredibly dense. After overexerting oneself in such a rich environment, cultivators would automatically absorb energy from the air to replenish themselves. And this was not limited to bloodline energy or physical energy, but also included spiritual energy. Before his previous life in Oppose, Douluo planet evolved, this cultivation method would have been somewhat feasible but nowhere near as good as in this world. Once we return I and Oppose, LL try it too, Wu Bingji said without hesitation. Previously, he focused more on the perception of the ice element and developed his ice elemental physique, a method continuously guided by Guanlong Jiang. However, following Tang San and Oppose's advice, he began to try compressing the ice elemental energy and soon felt that his spiritual power was insufficient. Enhancing his spiritual power would undoubtedly greatly benefit his control over the ice element. Thank you, little Tang, Guli sincerely nodded. Tang San smiled and said, no need to thank me. It was just an idea. I practice this way and I think you can tell that my spiritual power is pretty good. Naturally, no one here doubted his spiritual power. How could it be possible to control the wind blades to such an extent without immense spiritual power? Tang San said, alright, next I and Oppose. LL start teaching you how to defeat senior brother Zhang Zabin. Guli was momentarily stunned, thinking that the spiritual power cultivation method mentioned earlier was what Tang San had intended to teach him. Ignoring his surprise, Tang San walked down the slope. Shortly after, he returned with a vine and a stone. What is this for? The other four asked curiously. Tang San didn't and Oppose. T explained but simply squatted on the ground and started wrapping the stone with the vine. Soon, the stone was tightly bound, leaving about 2 meters of vine. Tang San gestured to the four, step back a little. Senior brother Guli, pay attention to my movements and the trajectory and changes of the stone and Oppose's movement. Okay, Guli nodded and stepped aside with Wu Bingji and Dubai. Tang San weighed the stone in his hand, a hint of reminiscence flashing in his eyes. The next moment he was in motion. He lifted the stone off the ground using the vine, dragging it up with his right hand. Then he gave the vine a tug, causing the stone to fly sideways. Finally, he made a half-turn, using his movement to swing the vine and the stone, which whirled around and slammed it hard onto the ground, producing a dull thump. They were on a dirt slope, and the impact created a shallow pit in the ground, from which the stone bounced up as it was pulled by the vine. Without stopping, Tang San spun again, using the rebound force of the impact. The stone and Oppose's flight speed increased noticeably, and as he completed a full rotation, the stone was slammed onto the ground once more. This time, the sound was noticeably louder than before. The stone bounced up faster, and Tang San swung it again without any pause, the whooshing sound even more intense as he forcefully slammed it down again. The rebound force produced by the impact between the stone and the ground, Tang San and Oppose's spinning speed, and the stone and Oppose's velocity in the air all increased with each of his rotations. With each booming sound, the pit in the ground grew in size, cracks began appearing in the surrounding ground, and the entire slope trembled. Gradually, Tang San spun so fast that he resembled a spinning top. Strangely, in spite of that, the stone always landed precisely at the same point. The flying stone and Oppose's terrifying whistling and thunderous booms as it smashed the ground had the four onlookers wide-eyed in amazement. They could all feel that this was not just about slamming the stone into the ground. Each collision was more forceful than the last, each rotation faster, yet the landing spot remained precisely the same. Borrowing power. Wu Bingji had already summed up this as the most crucial part of the technique. How does Tang San know so much? This was Dubai and Oppose's thought. Cheng Zicheng was gesturing with her hands, realizing that this technique might not be easy for her. How should I use it? Can I use it with my wings? She wondered. The wings of the golden rock Warren and Oppose, just for flying. They were also tough and mighty weapons. Finally, Guli fully understood why Tang San had demonstrated this. The swinging stone corresponded to his tail in the Chrono Croc transformation. The end of his tail was like a meteor hammer, and it was his primary weapon for attack. They lost count of how many times Tang San had spun. Suddenly, the stone and vine flew out of his hand, disappearing into the night sky with a piercing whistle. A few moments later, they heard it crash into the forest, probably a few hundred meters away. Tang San spun like a top for another dozen circles before stabilizing. When he finally stood still, his chest heaved visibly, and his face was flushed with exertion. 36, only 36 times. Tang San and Appo's arms were now completely numb. With his 9-year-old physique, he could barely do 36 strikes. Indeed, this was a hammer technique, one of his ultimate skills from his previous life, known as the disorder wind-splitting hammer. The technique borrowed momentum from each strike to make the next one heavier, and toward the end, its power would be incredibly terrifying as the strikes stacked up to a maximum of 81. He had yet to use a hammer in this life, but he still remembered the technique clearly. After witnessing the battle between Gu Li and Zhang Zibin that day, he felt that this hammer technique was very suitable for Gu Li. The ground before Tang San had been smashed into a large pit, and the onlookers gathered around to view the pit and the surrounding fissures, their faces showing great interest. Tang San turned to Gu Li and said, "Brother Gu." Gu Li quickly interrupted him, "Don and Appos. Call me an Appos, brother and Appos anymore. I now understand what the senior brother meant by and Appos. The accomplished one is the master. And Appos, just call me Gu Li, it and Appos, more like you are my senior brother. Thank you." He was certainly well aware of how important this technique was to him. His Chrono Croc transformation could control opponents, undoubtedly the most incredible control ability in the entire Redemption Society. What he lacked was a means of attack. The Chrono Croc transformation granted him strong defensive capabilities and formidable strength. However, his only means of attack was a simple tail whip. He was at a disadvantage against opponents with equally strong defenses, and all he could do was engage in a battle of attrition. Defeat was inevitable if his opponent had a higher cultivation level and could outlast him, especially considering that the energy consumption of the Chrono Croc transformation was much greater than that of a normal demonic god transformation. Thus, Gu Li and Appos' greatest fear was facing an opponent with powerful defenses. The technique demonstrated by Tang San was undoubtedly capable of enhancing his attack power and explosive force. If Gu Li could combine the Chrono Croc transformation with this technique, his attack power would be explosively amplified. He couldn't and Appos to even begin to imagine how much stronger he would get if he could master this. The Chrono Croc transformation allowed for solid control over the opponent, followed by continuous tail hammer strikes, each one stronger than the last. Stacked together, this was an extraordinary technique indeed. It supplemented the explosive power he most lacked. Tang San smiled slightly and said, "This is something I discovered as I was experimenting. It uses momentum and stacks the power of multiple strikes, and I call it the disorder wind-splitting hammer." Gu Li bowed earnestly to Tang San and said, "Please teach me." Tang San accepted his bow without hesitation and immediately explained the intricacies of the disorder wind-splitting hammer in detail. He did not keep it secret from the others. Wu Bingji, Dubai, and Chang Zicheng also listened intently. For a moment, everyone forgot about resting. Gu Li transformed into the Chrono Crocodile, swinging his long tail, repeatedly spinning and swinging the tail hammer. As he was using his tail rather than his arms, his way of using the technique was somewhat different from the original. Tang San made adjustments according to Gu Li and Appos' physique. By midnight, Gu Li could execute 3 or 4 hammer strikes in succession. The disorder wind-splitting hammer's essence lay not in the rotation or the number of attacks but in the cumulative power of each strike. Every blow must be stronger than the last, stacking up to produce increasingly fierce power. The more Gu Li practiced, the more exhilarated he became, paying no heed to the day and Appos' fatigue. He continued training until the next day and Appos' dawn, finally resting only when he was utterly exhausted. The plan to move forward was disrupted. Wu Bingji decided that everyone should rest in place for a day to contemplate Tang San and Appos' disorder wind-splitting hammer. For him, it was just a matter of reference, as he felt that continuing to practice the flicking dart was the better choice for him. To Tang San and Appos' surprise, it wasn't and Appos' just Gu Li who was interested in the disorder wind-splitting hammer. Chang Zicheng and Appos' interest was also quite significant. Activating the golden rock transformation, she continuously danced and spun in the air, slashing out with her wings and emitting sharp cries. Strangely enough, it seemed pretty effective. Her slashes indeed produced an accumulating force. Unfortunately, the surrounding trees and stones suffered the consequences, continually scarred by Tang Jia and Ep6's golden wings. The golden rock excelled at flight, and its flexible and sturdy wings were not only what propelled it in the air, but also its best means of attack and defense. However, at this point, Tang Jia was in the same situation as Guli. She lacked a technique that would allow her to make good use of her weapons. Tang San and Ep6's continuously spinning figure from the day before significantly moved her. She seemed to have found a path to the heavens as she constantly spun in the air. Seeing her sound understanding and genuine interest, Tang San guided her on the disorder wind-splitting hammer based on her situation. Unlike Guli's meteor hammer-like tail, the main characteristic of the golden wings was sharpness, not blunt force. The main problem with Tang Jia using the disorder wind-splitting hammer is whether her body could withstand the continuously increasing power. The golden wings were not something made of energy or new limbs she grew when she transformed, but rather her own transformed arms, so if they were damaged, it meant her arms were damaged. Due to this particularity, when she used the disorder wind-splitting hammer, she had to maximize the sharpness of the golden wings as much as possible while infusing sufficient bloodline power into them to ensure they aren't and Ep6's damaged. In addition, the angle of attack had to be carefully considered as well. Sister Jia, you must always be aware of the state of your golden wings when you're attacking. The moment they show signs of being unable to withstand it, you must stop immediately. Otherwise, if your wings are injured and you can and Ep6's fly, you and Ep6's be at the mercy of your opponent. I understand. Tang Jia nodded. My golden wings will become stronger as my cultivation improves anyway. I will infuse them with as much bloodline power as possible. I might not be able to use as many strikes as you and Guli do, but I think that it'll still be effective if I can stack a couple of them. Plus, my flying speed is really good. I can use that to build up power. I can start spinning in advance, and since speed and power are proportional, if I spin a couple of times to increase my speed, my first strike will be stronger than Guli's first strike. Tang San gave her a thumbs up. This was a perfect example of learning by analogy and adapting knowledge for personal use. Dubai chuckled and said, Zicheng, if you use this, it can and Ep6's be called disorder wind-splitting hammer anymore. How about I name it for you? Let and Ep6's call it golden wing wind-splitting slash. What do you think? Tang Jia glanced at him but replied, it actually doesn't sound that bad. Let and Ep6's go with that for now. I need to practice well to see how to use it best. Hey, I and Ep6's surprise everyone when we get back. Tang Jia and Guli practiced their techniques, while Wu Bingji continued his training with flicking dart and ice element compression. Tang San meditated, cultivating the mysterious heaven technique. Only Dubai seemed idle, gazing into the distance absent-mindedly. He also asked Tang San how to improve his celestial fox transformation, but Tang San felt somewhat helpless about this. He did, in fact, have some thoughts about the celestial fox transformation. The main reason for Dubai and Ep6's slow progress seemed to be that his celestial fox bloodline was too diluted. Typically, members of the celestial fox clan Wuden and Ep6's experience such stagnation in their cultivation. However, in his case, the progress was curiously slow. Regarding this, Tang San didn't and Ep6's have many reasonable solutions. The only things he could think of were intense stimulation of the bloodline and the enhancement of spiritual power. Finding an opportunity for intense stimulation was key. That day, they simply didn't and Ep6's leave their spot, but Wu Bingji, Guli, and Tang Jia all felt their gains were even more remarkable than they would have been if they had continued exploring. As night fell and everyone was tired from the day and Ep6's cultivation, Tang San offered to keep watch at night. After all, he had meditated all day and he was well rested and in the best mental state. Wu Bingji, Guli, and Tang Jia found places in the trees to meditate and rest, while Dubai stayed under the tree, keeping Tang San company. Little Tang, what should I do? Dubai said, sounding somewhat despondent. What an Ep6's wrong all of a sudden? Tang San asked. Dubai said, I am 11, almost 12 years old. When I was younger, my teachers told me that my celestial fox transformation had great potential. It was a first-tier demonic god transformation bloodline, all that. At that time, I was the most important person to protect in the Redemption Society, and my celestial fox transformation was actually top secret. I barely even cultivated, but by the time I was 8, I had already reached the third order. I was everybody's darling and they all had hopes for me. But then, in the past 3 years it just stopped. After I reached the third order, I felt my celestial fox transformation stagnated, and I haven't made any progress at all since then. I have tried many methods to improve, but nothing worked. At most, my perception with the celestial fox vision got a little bit better. The thing is, the third order celestial fox vision can see others in Appos, cultivation levels and sense their fortune, but it's very limited. If the other person's level is much higher, it's completely useless. You know. I also want to be stronger and stop being a burden. No one ever told me anything bad and the teachers are always encouraging me, but still, I feel more and more like a piece of trash. Tang-san didn't end Appos. T say anything and simply listened silently to Dubai's narrative. It was clear that Dubai was affected by the improvement in strength of the other 3 over the past 2 days. I also want to fight and I also want to be an important part of the team. But my body is weak and the celestial fox vision ISN and Appos. T much use at all, so how should I improve? I once overheard the mayor saying that my celestial fox vision might be stuck at the third order because my bloodline is too diluted. If that and Appos is the case, then there's no point in having the bloodline at all. A third order celestial fox vision is basically useless. I want to ask if your method of cultivating spiritual power can help me break through. Tang-san looked at him deeply and said, It and Appos is difficult. Hearing this, Dubai and Appos' eyes dimmed significantly, and he gave a bitter smile. I thought so. Because your celestial fox transformation is so high in tier, you probably need much more bloodline energy to break through to the next order. Every 3 orders is a major stage, and breaking through from the third to the fourth is a significant barrier. If you overcome it, you can reach the 6th order. If not, you will remain at the third order forever. The method of cultivating spiritual power I told everyone about is effective as long as you don't have to cross a major order bottleneck. For example, it would benefit Guli until he reaches the 6th order, but not to the 7th. If a major bottleneck blocks you, it won't help you. Your total amount of spiritual power is also limited by major bottlenecks, so no matter how much you overdraw it, it can in Appos. T replaced the evolution of the bloodline. This was all true. Previously, when Tang-san was cultivating the mysterious heaven technique up to the third order, he had a clear sense of this. The difficulty of advancing from the third to the fourth order was immense. Moreover, at that time he was also under the suppression of the plane, which made advancement even more challenging. Thankfully, his extensive knowledge and experience from his previous life as a god king, combined with the unique devouring ability of the mysterious heaven technique, allowed him to make a successful breakthrough. Dubai and Appos' situation was equally unique in a sense. The celestial fox vision might not be very useful at a lower level, but the bloodline tier of the celestial fox transformation was as high as bloodline tiers could get. Generally, the mighty bloodline power would naturally facilitate breakthroughs for the members of the actual celestial fox clan, but that was not the case for Dubai, who seemed to have a very diluted bloodline. 1. What should I do? Tang-san, you even helped our eldest senior brother with his cultivation. Can you help me? I want to be useful in Dawn and Appos. T want to keep holding everyone back. At this point, Dubai, unlike his usual lively and mischievous self, had a hint of redness in his eyes. Tang-san patted his shoulder and said, I have a method we can try, but it might be somewhat risky. I Dawn and Appos. T know if your celestial fox transformation will be compatible. I and Appos. V had others try it before, and the results were and Appos. T good. But your celestial fox transformation is special. I and Appos. Am willing to try. Rather than keep being useless forever, what in Appos? The harm in taking a risk? Dubai said somewhat excitedly. Tang-san and Appos' mouth twitched slightly. He knew that his master, the mayor, was probably nearby, watching over them, but he wouldn't and Appos T come too close so as to avoid interfering with their experience. Indeed, their conversation would not be overheard by Zhang Haoshuan. If Master heard I was preparing to let Dubai take a risk in his cultivation, I wonder if he would want to kill me. But Dubai is right about one thing. If things continue this way, from what I've seen, He'll likely never break through the third order in his lifetime. Tang San took a deep breath and said, "Let and Apo's try." "Well, here's the deal. The problem you have is that you can't break through a major bottleneck because your bloodline is weak. There's nothing I can do about bloodline power unless you somehow get some intense stimulation, which might work. Or if you could bathe yourself in the blood of the celestial fox demons, but we both know that in Apo's just a pipe dream. So we have to approach this from a different angle. We need to focus on spiritual power. I have a method to cultivate spiritual power alone. Apart from me, no one else with the demonic god transformation has been able to cultivate it successfully. Some people tried, but they couldn't. But you might have a chance since your ability is related to your eyes. If you can cultivate this thing up to the third order or higher, it might actually help your celestial fox transformation break through to the next level. The celestial fox vision is an eye of fortune, but it also seems to be influenced by spiritual power. Forcing a breakthrough with spiritual power might just work. Alright, I and Apo's learn from you, Dubai said firmly again. These past few days he had watched everyone successfully hunt demonic beasts under Tang San and Apo's leadership, each reaping their gains and growing stronger. How could he not be envious? After all, he was still just an 11-year-old boy. He too longed to be useful. So Tang San and Apo's words were like a lifeline to him. He had to try it, no matter what. Go rest first, Tang San said. Aren't and Apo's we practicing now? Dubai asked eagerly. Tang San said, now is not the time for cultivation. I and Apo's wake you early tomorrow morning, but you must keep this a secret. If the teachers find out, I and Apo's will be in serious trouble. But I and Apo's am more than 80% confident that it shouldn't and Apo's be too much of a problem for you even if it doesn't work. Okay, Don and Apo's worry, I and Apo's keep it a secret. Right now I and Apo's am just praying that it works. Tang San patted his shoulder. Go and rest now. Keeping your spirits up will increase the chances of it working. Okay. Dubai was generally easygoing, and with Tang San's reassurance, his mood immediately improved. With that, he went up the tree to rest. Watching him climb the tree, Tang San smiled slightly. He genuinely wanted to help Dubai. Helping his senior brother was, in a way, helping himself. The risk wasn't in Apo's just for Dubai but for Tang San as well. Silently feeling the somewhat faint but shining white bloodline imprint within himself, Tang San and Apo's heart also warmed up. Yes, he had already extracted some of the celestial fox transformation and Apo's bloodline power over the past few days from Dubai through contact. He hadn't and Apo's rushed to extract from the others because they needed to be ready for battle at any moment. Weakening them even a little could be detrimental in a fight against demonic beasts. After all, they were all together, so there was no rush. However, Dubai wasn't participating, so there was no problem on that end. Having stayed in the area for more than a day, they had carefully observed the surroundings, and they seemed free of danger. As Tang San was to keep watch during the night, he was also planning on attempting to see if he could integrate Dubai and Apo's celestial fox vision into his own discerning eye. For him, this was undoubtedly a crucial experiment. If the mutation was successful and in a favorable direction, then his discerning eye would indeed ascend to a new level, acquiring even more extraordinary abilities. Focusing inward, he adjusted his state of being. When Tang San felt that his physique, energy, and spirit had reached their peak, he slowly began to control the imprint of the celestial fox transformation within him to move towards the imprint of the discerning eye. As the two imprints gradually neared each other, Tang San distinctly felt his eyes beginning to burn intensely. This was the feedback from the bloodline imprints. His discerning eye was at the fourth order, while the celestial fox transformation he absorbed from Dubai was about second order. Given enough time and continuous absorption, reaching a third-order celestial fox transformation wouldn't and Apo's be a problem. However, Tang San was worried that the stronger the celestial fox transformation, the more difficult it would be to merge the two. Therefore, he began the attempt while it was still at the second order. As the two different imprints gradually came closer, Tang San couldn't and Apo's help but feel nervous. Success or failure hinged on this moment. If successful, he would enter an entirely new realm. If he failed, who knew what would happen? The discerning eye seemed to sense the aura of the celestial fox transformation, and it began to emit an intense light. The near incandescent glow made Tang San and Appo's eyes feel even hotter. He didn't and Appo's need to open his eyes to sense the elemental fluctuations in the air around him. However, the celestial fox transformation's imprint showed no change and continued to approach slowly. Throughout the process, there was no sign of repulsion. Then, in the next moment, something shocking happened to Tang San. Without any warning, his discerning eye imprint exploded. The cluster of white light burst open almost instantly, and the white radiance scattered outward. Tang San shivered, and he felt a sharp pain in his eyes. The sensation of external elements instantly disappeared. Damn, this is bad, was his first thought. But it was already too late to reverse what had happened. He was about to lose the discerning eye. This was particularly distressing for Tang San. The discerning eye and Appo's abilities were exceptional, enhancing his normal vision and spiritual power, as well as his abilities to observe the surroundings, capture the opponent's flaws, and control the battle. Naturally, he didn't and Appo's want to lose it, but having lived 3 lifetimes, his mentality was stable. He wasn't and Appo's swayed by this sudden change and continued to circulate his energy, focusing inward calmly. Then he witnessed an extraordinary scene. The imprint of the second-order celestial fox transformation seemed utterly unaffected by the explosion of the discerning eye. It casually moved to the original location of the discerning eye and imprinted itself there. Meanwhile, the exploding light of the discerning eye did not dissipate but instead formed a halo-like ring around the periphery. What was even more peculiar was what happened next. It began to move after the celestial fox transformation's imprint that was now settled in place. Tang San had 6 imprints within him right now, well 5.5 with the discerning eye mostly gone. They were all floating in the energy vortex in his dantian, and the one in central position had always been the 5th-order peak-level Wind Wolf transformation imprint. At this very moment, the recently stabilized celestial fox transformation imprint unexpectedly started moving on its own. Assertively and unapologetically, it pushed its way to the main seat. This movement, though small, caused Tang San and Appo's energy vortex to become chaotic, and intense fluctuations instantly appeared. The other 4 imprints within his body also started to change. It was as if they were influenced by the celestial fox transformation, and they were becoming agitated. Affected by them, Tang San and Appo's energy became erratic and circulated wildly within him. His complexion turned pale instantly. The intense agitation of the mysterious heaven technique's energy and his bloodline power inside him made him immediately realize a grave issue. He was on the brink of deviating from his cultivation path. Whether in his first, second, or third lifetime, cultivation deviation was always the most severe issue. Cultivation deviation meant that even if one didn't and Appo's die, they would be gravely injured. The higher the level of cultivation, the more terrifying the consequences of deviation. And at such times no one could help him. Tang San's master Zhang Haoshuan was a mighty 9th-order powerhouse. However, he was far away and couldn't and Appo's sensed the changes in his pupil's body, and even if he did, he wouldn't and Appo's be able to help. The mysterious heaven technique was unique in this world. Tang San and Appo's greatest strength was his calmness in the face of significant events. The more critical the situation, the calmer he became. He remained calm, not panicking due to the sudden onset of cultivation deviation. He first thought of the worst-case scenario. The chaotic movement of his energy could not be brought under control. If that was the case, he would have no choice but to stimulate that bit of divine consciousness nurtured in his sea of spirit, using its formidable power to forcibly disperse all bloodline imprints within his body, returning the cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique to its correct path. In doing so, he would be left without any demonic god transformation, possessing only the energy of the mysterious heaven technique. This was the worst outcome, but it was not entirely unacceptable. All he needed to consider was how to explain the disappearance of his Wind Wolf transformation. But clearly this was not the best solution. That bit of divine consciousness was far too precious for Tang San. If it could be preserved, it had to be preserved. Moreover, he had finally absorbed the imprints of these demonic god transformations and become familiar with these abilities. To simply discard them was something he honestly hesitated to do. Not only would his strength decline significantly, but he would have to waste time to regain the bloodline imprints he had lost. So what should he do? Without a doubt, the chief culprit of his cultivation deviation was the celestial fox transformation. Its integration had led to the other demonic god transformation imprints astray, thus causing these issues. The pain from the cultivation deviation grew increasingly intense. Although Tang San and Ep6's meridians were relatively robust, he was only 9 years old. If this continued, there was a risk of his body exploding. At this moment he had to make a choice. In an instant he had made a decision. Forcefully gathering his mental strength, he focused his mind on his dantian. At this moment the celestial fox vision was already positioned at the center, while the other demonic god transformation imprints were fluctuating intensely, each seeming unwilling to yield to the others. Tang San forcibly guided them with his mental strength, rearranging their order. The celestial fox transformation remained at the center, but Tang San chose the chrono croc transformation for the second position. Following this was the golden rock transformation. Next was the wind wolf transformation. Lastly, flash leopard transformation. They were almost in order from the lowest order to the highest. In the shortest time, he completed the rearrangement of these 5 imprints. Then, he forcibly stabilized them in their new arrangement, preventing any movement. Only when they stabilized and ceased their turbulent interactions would his energy vortex return to calm. Tang San and Ep6's decision was due to his understanding of these bloodline imprints. Forcing the celestial fox transformation to the central position undeniably signified the principle of bloodline hierarchy supremacy. The bloodline imprint of the celestial fox transformation undoubtedly looked down on other bloodlines, hence its unwillingness to be ranked lower, and this was what had led to such a change. The chrono croc transformation and the golden rock transformation fluctuated in protest due to their own high tier. By contrast, even though the wind wolf transformation was by far the strongest, at the peak of 5th order, its fluctuations were not severe. It even seemed somewhat fearful. Thus, Tang San and Ep6's rearrangement was based on the hierarchy of bloodlines, placing those of higher levels at the forefront. Indeed, when he exerted his full strength to stabilize the 5 bloodline imprints, aside from some fluctuations in the wind wolf transformation imprint, which seemed slightly dissatisfied with the 4th place, the other 4 imprints quickly stabilized. With the stabilization of the celestial fox, chrono croc and golden rock imprints, the energy vortex in his dantian naturally followed suit and stabilized. The impact of the mysterious heaven technique quickly diminished, and the pain receded like a tide. Tang San knew his choice was correct and immediately heaved a sigh of relief. All his efforts across 3 lifetimes hadn't been in vain. In someone else in Ep6's shoes it would have probably been troublesome. Of course, it wasn't like anyone else would face a situation like his. At that moment, a ring of white light slowly converged inward, merging toward the celestial fox transformation. The celestial fox transformation seemed somewhat disdainful of their fusion. When the white ring approached the central luminescent white, it didn't and Ep6's fully merge, but rather like a ribbon of light, it circled the periphery, maintaining a certain distance from the 2nd order white light of the celestial fox transformation. It started spinning in a loop and surprisingly stabilized just like that. Is that even possible? Even with all his experience, Tang San had never encountered a similar situation. The two hadn't and Ep6's completely merged, yet they maintained a balance. What does this mean? The celestial fox transformation did not wholly reject the discerning eye, but seemed to look down upon it. Both maintained a delicate balance. The discerning eye was eager to merge internally, which Tang San could sense. This seemed to be an instinct on an energy level. Simply put, the celestial fox transformation was like an unparalleled beauty, while the discerning eye was like the beauty and Ep6's devoted admirer. The unparalleled beauty didn't think highly of this admirer but seemed to find him somewhat interesting, so she reluctantly accepted him as a backup option. Yes, exactly like that. With the relationship between the discerning eye and the celestial fox transformation stabilizing, the other 4 imprints also quickly stabilized. Tang San and Ep6's dantian finally ceased its turmoil, and the energy of the mysterious heaven technique swiftly returned to its original position, circulating within his body on its own. The greatest crisis was thus resolved in an instant. But at that very moment Tang San and Ep6's entire body shook violently. He felt as if his sea of consciousness had exploded instantly, and from the just stabilized celestial fox transformation imprint, a solid white light burst forth. This light did not shine outward from his body but directly illuminated his sea of consciousness. The aura of the celestial fox transformation even carried a hint of self-importance, as it rampaged through his sea of consciousness and vigorously absorbed his spiritual power. It also condensed a new imprint within the sea of consciousness, as if intended to dominate it. At the same time, the celestial fox transformation imprint in the dantian did not disappear. By connecting the dantian with the sea of consciousness, was it attempting to dominate his body? Without developing its own spiritual intelligence, it obviously couldn't and Ep6. However, Tang San could distinctly feel it. As the energy of the celestial fox transformation entered his sea of consciousness, it was not only consuming his spiritual power, but also rejecting all other energies within him. Apart from the discerning eye, the backup option, the other four major imprints all felt an explicit rejection. Despite the celestial fox transformation being only of the second order, it haughtily repelled everything. Even his mysterious heaven technique was being vigorously repulsed. Naturally, Tang San was pissed. Hey, don't you think you and Ep6 are too arrogant? You and Ep6 just arrived, and not only are you not satisfied with being the first general, you even want to take the throne yourself. He fully understood the consequences of his mind being occupied by the celestial fox transformation. Dubai and Ep6's condition was the best example. The celestial fox transformation, being of an extremely high order, possessed its arrogant instincts. It naturally repelled beings of lower orders. However, if it succeeded in that, Tang San would end up like a second Dubai. From now on, his only ability would be the celestial fox transformation, and if worst came to worst, he would become utterly useless. Recklessness sure invites trouble. However, having resolved the risk of deviating from his cultivation, Tang San now had complete control over his body. Facing the mischief of the celestial fox transformation, he felt no urgency. Instead, he opened his mind wide, allowing it to wreak havoc in his sea of consciousness and absorb his spiritual energy as it wished. The celestial fox transformation truly integrated with him while absorbing spiritual energy, in a manner very much unlike any bloodline imprint he had absorbed before. When he absorbed the chronocroc transformation, the changes it brought to Tang San were significant. That integration allowed him to feel the changes in time of this world and be recognized by this plane of existence, aligning him with this world. The integration with the celestial fox transformation was not just about a bloodline imprint or a single ability. It was an integration of destiny, opening a new level of fortune for him. In a sense, the ability of the celestial foxes was closely related to the lord of this plane. It was an existence that could even control certain powers of the plane. This was one reason the celestial fox transformation was highly valued. After Tang San experienced the transformation of the celestial fox bloodline imprint, he came to a judgment about the celestial fox demon emperor. This demon emperor was likely the messenger of the planar ruler, practically an apostle walking among the living. A celestial fox had no combat power to speak of, but neither did it need any. Being able to borrow the power of the planar ruler and utilize the laws of the plane already placed it at the pinnacle of this world. During the integration process of the celestial fox vision, Tang San distinctly felt a different connection with the outside world. The very level of his existence seemed to be transforming, leading to a subtle recognition of everything external as insignificant. The level of all the life forms around him appeared to be diminishing while his own continually ascended. The luminescent white of the celestial fox transformation shone increasingly brighter in his spiritual world. This was a transformation of the spirit, and it was even more significant to Tang San than a physical transformation. Gradually, most of Tang San and Ep6's spiritual energy was devoured by the celestial fox transformation, which evolved directly from the second to the third order. Without Tang San needing to absorb more bloodline energy from Dubai, the celestial fox transformation evolved independently. This was because Tang San and Ep6's spiritual energy was much more potent and purer than Dubai and Ep6's. Apart from his cultivation, His spiritual power was nourished by the feedback from his divine consciousness, as if his spiritual power also constantly enriched that bit of divine consciousness within him. That and Apo's about it. If this continues, the little boss occupying my spiritual world will likely actively disperse the mysterious heaven technique and fully cause me to assimilate into this world, Tang San thought. With a thought from Tang San, a pure golden light suddenly flashed in the sea of his mind. The previously proud, self-satisfied, control freak, pearly white light instantly froze when this pure golden light appeared. Almost instantly, that golden light fell upon the pearly white light. In the next instant, the golden light transformed into a large hand in the sea of his mind, grasping the pearly white light. The previously proud and snooty pearly white light suddenly shivered as if sensing something. Tang San even felt the outside world tremble slightly. This was related to the planar energy connected to the celestial fox transformation. Fortunately, his celestial fox transformation power was only at the third order, far from enough to directly communicate with the planar ruler. The golden hand in the sea of his mind suddenly clenched, and in that instant Tang San could swear that he heard a sharp cry of pain. The next moment, the pearly white light sphere, which had devoured almost all of Tang San and Apo's spiritual energy, was flattened under the grip of the golden hand. A great burst of spiritual energy sprayed out. The overall quantity was reduced compared to before, but the outpouring spiritual energy was no longer gaseous. It had transformed into a pale golden liquid. The sea of consciousness suddenly became tumultuous. In that instant, Tang San and Apo's perception skyrocketed, and almost every minute change within 1,000 meters radius was clear as daylight in his mind. Inside the Dantian, the pearly white bloodline imprint representing the celestial fox transformation instantly withered, and the discerning eye shone brightly in turn. The energy of the discerning eye rapidly merged inward, finally adhering to the pearly white core, quickly integrating with it. Although the pearly white imprint remained the most prominent position, a faint gold layer gradually appeared. This hint of gold was directly connected to Tang San's sea of consciousness, maintaining a faint connection between it and the Dantian. In the sea of consciousness, the previously pearly white light sphere had shrunk into a ball, quietly floating there. The golden hand that had been grasping it only then relaxed, shaking off. That hint of gold instantly illuminated every corner of Tang San and Apo's body, making all his chi even purer. The most fundamental energy of heaven and earth from the outside air wildly converged into his body, constantly cleansing and purifying his body and spiritual world. On a distant mountain peak, Zhang Haoshuan was meditating cross-legged when suddenly he sensed something. He abruptly opened his eyes and looked somewhere in the distance. In his perception, the energy of heaven and earth suddenly became agitated. It looked like a giant funnel, converging to a point somewhere in the forest. What in Apo's happening? Is there trouble over there? Zhang Haoshuan leaped to his feet. A red light flashed behind him, and he shot off like an arrow in that direction. Tang San felt better than he ever had before. It was a sense of unparalleled comfort, the kind that signifies a true transformation and rejuvenation of both body and soul. He could feel that he had utterly merged with this world. The planar suppression that once accompanied his reincarnation was no more. Whether on a physical or spiritual level, he was now in perfect harmony with this realm, feeling an inexplicable connection to it. His entire being was transparent and connected, with his spiritual consciousness bonding with his bloodline. In an instant, his cultivation level had leaped from the mid-stage to the peak of the fifth order of the mysterious heaven technique. What surprised him even more was the enhancement of his 5 bloodline imprints. Apart from the green imprint of the wind wolf transformation, which remained at the peak of the fifth order but deepened in color, the other 4 imprints ascended by 1 order. The celestial fox transformation imprint, which had fallen to the second order after being crushed by a golden hand, had now recovered to the third order. The leopard flash advanced to the 5th order, the chronocroc transformation to the 4th, equal to Gu Li and Apo's own level, and the golden rock transformation also reached the 4th order. His discerning eye and celestial fox transformation had fully integrated. It could be said that his entire being had undergone a sublime elevation. The most significant enhancement, however, was in Tang San and Apo's spiritual power. His sea of consciousness had transformed from a gaseous to a liquid state. This liquid form of spiritual energy was on an entirely different level from before. His spiritual power was thus consolidated, and so was his cultivation. Now, as he cultivated, the gaseous spiritual energy that he produced was slowly converted into liquid. In the same size sea of consciousness, a far greater amount of spiritual energy could be contained in liquid form than its gaseous counterpart, giving him a much greater scope for improvement. Even if his sea of consciousness did not expand, his spiritual power could continue to progress more effectively. The transformation brought by the fusion of the celestial fox transformation was truly immense, something even Tang San hadn't anticipated. The bloodline imprint he had merged with was only of the second order, yet so domineering. Even Tang San himself had never imagined such an outcome. It was because Dubai, with his third-order celestial fox transformation, had performed so poorly in the past that Tang San had vastly underestimated the powerful heritage of this first-tier bloodline. Initially, Tang San believed that while the celestial fox transformation was powerful, it probably required a higher level to show its strength fully. However, he hadn't expected that just a one-tier advantage could bring about such a significant change. If not for his trump card, he might have ended up like another Dubai, forcibly merged with the celestial fox transformation, forever with third-order cultivation, and with all other abilities wholly rejected by the celestial fox transformation. He would have been left to wait for luck alongside Dubai, and luck would have been the only aspect somewhat improved. The golden hand, capable of manipulating the energy of the celestial fox transformation, played an extremely crucial role. The sea of consciousness used it to show the celestial fox transformation who was the boss. That was the bit of divine consciousness Tang San had brought from his previous life. The application of divine consciousness was filled with infinite mysteries, but Tang San had always been reluctant to use it, fearing its consumption. Once this bit of divine consciousness was used up, he would lose the last connection to his original world. It would also mean the loss of his most crucial self-preservation power. But in the Sea of Spirit it was different. No matter how high the level of the Celestial Fox vision ability or the first-tier bloodline of the Celestial Fox transformation, they could not compare to a God King. While Tang San's divine consciousness lacked quantity, it was still at the level of a God King quality-wise, and the tier of the Celestial Fox transformation, high though it was still far from that of a God King. If the Celestial Fox transformation was considered to be representative of this plane, Tang San and Ep6's divine consciousness was the once supreme ruler of the divine realm, the monarch of an entire universe. The higher the world in Ep6's hierarchy, the more apparent the suppression effect of the hierarchy becomes. In front of the divine consciousness at the God King level, the Celestial Fox transformation couldn't and Ep6's even muster the thought to resist. Tang San wasn't Ep6's worried about the Celestial Fox transformation causing mischief within his Sea of Spirit, because he had divine consciousness as his trump card. Indeed, he had to admit that the Celestial Fox transformation was formidable. After devouring his spiritual energy, it directly filtered it, liquefied it, and prepared to assimilate it. Thankfully, before it could assimilate it, it was brought under control by Tang San's divine consciousness. The transition from vapor to liquid was the most crucial transformation of spiritual power. Complete liquefaction signified that Tang San and Ep6's spiritual level had ascended to another realm. Typically, this would require at least a seventh-order cultivation and the corresponding spiritual power. Now, thanks to this fortunate coincidence, he had broken through without any hardships. Additionally, his existence being fully recognized by this plane reduced the oppressive force acting upon him. Tang San could now determine that at least until he reached the ninth order, he should not encounter any significant bottlenecks. Actual problems would only arise when he tried to become a god once more. At that time, he would likely be discovered by this plane again, leading to renewed suppression. But at his level of cultivation, that was still a distant concern and not something to be worried about. From a distance, Zhang Haoshuan had already observed the situation here. His sharp gaze instantly noticed Tang San cultivating under a tree while the others were resting on the tree, with no sign of any danger. What in Ep6's going on? No danger. But the intense disturbance of natural energy just now was from this direction. Maybe one of them made a significant breakthrough? He didn't and Ep6's T looked at Tang San at first but focused on Wu Bingji. Wu Bingji and Appo's progress had been rapid recently. However, he had just broken through to the 6th order not long before, and it was impossible to aim for the 7th order quickly. After all, the leap from 6th to 7th order was a significant threshold. If not Wu Bingji, then who? His spiritual power swept over everyone, finding nothing amiss. The aura of all these youngsters was very normal. This left Zhang Haoshuan somewhat puzzled. After observing for a while longer, he finally left. He didn't and Appo's know that his arrival was well within Tang San and Appo's perception. Due to the difference in cultivation, Tang San would not have sensed Zhang Haoshuan and Appo's arrival unless he used his divine consciousness. But now it was different. His spiritual energy had liquefied, greatly enhancing his perceptive abilities. Although Zhang Haoshuan was a 9th order powerhouse when it came to pure spiritual power, he was technically in the same realm as Tang San quality-wise, although the mayor had more of it. Tang San was naturally adept at concealing his aura, so it was no surprise that Zhang Haoshuan couldn't and Appo's detect any change in him. With Zhang Haoshuan gone, Tang San completely relaxed. Since he was on night watch, he didn't let himself enter a meditative state. Instead, he quietly relished the gains from his recent advancement. The gains from this night were tremendous. He was now very grateful for his decision to join the Redemption Society. In just a few days here, he had acquired more than he had in years of cultivation previously. Such is the advantage of resources. His companions, with their top-tier bloodlines, had been a tremendous help to him. Indeed, he had to do his best to help them improve. He was now at the peak of the 5th order. He needed to consolidate his realm, and soon he could consider advancing to the 6th order. And when he made that push, he had to start with the Wind Wolf transformation, as that was his publicly known bloodline. In the early morning, Chang Zicheng stretched her body atop the tree, feeling refreshed after a night in Appo's rest. Her arms were sore from practicing the Golden Wing Wind splitting slash the day before. Looking down, she immediately spotted Tang San sitting beneath the tree, causing her to pause slightly. Tang San seemed to have undergone some changes. He looked more pleasing, and his physique was no longer as thin, instead appearing more robust. His features had opened up considerably overnight, transforming from ordinary to somewhat handsome. Beside Tang San was Dubai, who, like Tang San, sat cross-legged, silently cultivating. As the sky brightened, the morning sun rose slowly in the distance. Wu Bingji and Guli also awakened from their cultivation one after another. The day and Appo's practice and a night of rest had led to a palpable improvement in each of them. Guli was the most excited, almost wishing to stay there and continue practicing his disorder wind-splitting hammer technique. Under the tree, Tang San, sensing the awakening of the three, also opened his eyes. Then he nudged Dubai beside him and asked in a low voice, "How do you feel?" Dubai opened his eyes, initially dazed but quickly regaining focus, and thoughtfully said, "I feel something. My eyes seem warm and comfortable. Other than that, there and Appo's nothing special yet. It seems that your body might not reject this technique, at least not for now. So keep cultivating. This method requires time to accumulate. You have to accumulate a lot of energy before you see the gains." Before the others woke up this morning, Dubai had climbed down from the tree himself. He had been looking forward to Tang San and Appo's guidance. Taking advantage of the morning and Appo's purple aura, Tang San taught Dubai how to cultivate the purple demon eyes. Dubai followed suit in practicing with him. Tang San had greatly enhanced his spiritual power, and consequently improved his purple demon eyes. The effect of today and Appo's cultivation was excellent. To his surprise, Dubai, who was an Appo's exceptional in other aspects, seemed natural at cultivating the purple demon eyes. On his first day of practice, Tang San could already sense a change in him as a faint purple aura radiated from his eyes. This was a phenomenon that hadn't in Appo's occurred when he tried it with the Wang brothers and Ling Muxue before. Could it be that they couldn't and Appo's cultivate the purple demon eyes because their bloodline tier is too low? And Dubai can do it with the celestial fox vision and Appo's higher tier? It would make sense. This was a distinct possibility, and also a pretty favorable situation. If the purple demon eyes could help Dubai continuously enhance his spiritual power, and considering that Tang San confirmed that the celestial fox transformation was able to devour spiritual power to improve, then it was actually possible for Dubai to use this method to break through. After breakfast, the group couldn't and oppose. Stay put. Wu Bingji and Tang San were aware that the mayor was following them secretly. They set off again, heading deeper into the jungle. According to the map, they had about a day and oppo's journey left to reach the habitat of the winged tigers. Along the way, whenever they encountered lonely demonic beasts, even the usually cautious Wu Bingji didn't and oppose. Stopped them from engaging. Right now, demonic beasts were the best targets for practice. Even Chang Zicheng was no longer just scouting. She used her freshly practiced and somewhat clumsy golden wing wind-splitting slash, coordinating with everyone in the attack. As a beginner, facing fifth-order demonic beasts was somewhat scary, but with Tang San and Wu Bingji by their side, there was naturally no danger. Moreover, the most significant advantage of Guli and Appo's chronocroc transformation was that it allowed a great margin for error. Whenever the disorder wind-splitting hammer failed to connect, he could immobilize the opponent briefly and start over. Today, their gains were even greater than the day before, and they managed to take down 7 or 8 demonic beasts. Among them was one at the peak of the fifth order, on par with the fisher lizards. All their faces showed nothing else but beaming smiles. This outing had not only improved their strength and battle experience, but also yielded many demonic beasts. It was indeed a bountiful gain. Little Tang, make sure to call me for future missions. I'll be at your beck and call. In his great mood, Guli became much more active. The thought of beating Zhang Zibin after mastering the disorder wind-splitting hammer technique brightened his spirits like nothing else. Tang San smiled. Sure, this kind of practical training is really great for everyone in Appo's strength progression. If we train, cultivate, and then train again, then we'll get much better much faster. Wu Bingji cautioned them, we must not be careless. The Kali mountain range is extremely dangerous. According to the Academy and Appo's records, this trail that leads to the habitat of the winged tigers is relatively safe. This area lacks precious herbs and other natural treasures because the environment is not good for them. We would have encountered stronger demonic beasts if we had taken a different direction. We can and Appo's let our guard down just because we had a couple of victories. Also, we are about to enter the territory of the winged tigers. From this point on, the danger will increase. Everyone, please remain vigilant. Yes, the others responded in unison. They knew that they were nearing the border of the winged tigers and Appo's habitat. Wu Bingji said in a serious tone, let and Appo's find a place to rest and recover early today. We and Appo's enter the winged tigers and Appo's territory tomorrow when we're fresh. Guli, Tang San, and I will take turns keeping watch tonight. Don and Appo's work on your new abilities for now. Just stay in top condition. Yes, everyone agreed again. When they set out that morning, Wu Bingji also shared their mission target, informing the other 3. Unexpectedly, Guli, Chang Zicheng, and Dubai showed no particular reaction to the possibility of facing a 7th-order winged tiger. Chang Zicheng even suggested strategies for intercepting the winged tiger in the air. At that moment, Wu Bingji realized that his younger fellow students were getting overconfident due to their previous smooth progress. They had quickly overcome peak 5th-order demonic beasts. Wu Bingji was at the 6th order, and Tang San, while not there yet in cultivation, was comparable in strength. Their team cooperation made them feel confident, even against a 7th-order demonic beast. This was the mindset of the other 3. Wu Bingji was worried, but when he looked at Tang San, he saw that the latter didn't and Appo's show any particular emotion either. It then occurred to Wu Bingji that the mayor was secretly following them, so he calmed down as well. Tang San and Appo's thought was actually simple. You don't know reality until it punches you in the face. These young people needed a good jolt. A heavier blow would be more beneficial for their improvement. He didn't and Appo's feel the need to warn them now. When danger struck, reality would teach them a harsh lesson. With his experiences from a past life, he was well aware of the circumstances that best stimulated potential. Actually, his companions were not the only ones who needed this catalyst. He also did. They chose a spot on higher ground, ate something simple, and then everyone went to sleep early. Wu Bingji took the first watch while the other 4 rested in the trees. The sky gradually darkened utterly. Although they were on a hillside, the giant trees above obscured the light of the stars and moon, making their surroundings quite dim. As time ticked by, the 4 in the trees were immersed in meditation. Suddenly, Tang San opened his eyes, and they flashed with faint light. His enhanced spiritual power significantly improved his perception, and he sensed something. He looked down. Wu Bingji below hadn't Appos. He sensed anything yet and was just sitting there, paying attention to the surrounding noises. Just then, a howling wind rose in the mountains, the chilly mountain breeze bringing cold waves. Wu Bingji shivered and stood up, instantly on high alert. His nose twitched, and he seemed to be sniffing something. The next moment he froze. He stood like that for a second or two. Then he slapped the large tree behind him with his palm. The shock woke everyone meditating on the branches. "Aya!" cried out Dubai. He was the one with the poorest control of his own body, and he nearly fell from the tree due to the shock. Tang San quickly grabbed him, stabilizing him on the branch. "Hold tight to the branch, stay up here and don and Appos." Come down, Tang San advised him, then leaped down to join Wu Bingji. Guli followed Tang San, jumping down from the tree. Chang Zicheng didn't and Appos. Descend but immediately activated her golden rock transformation, her arms turning into golden wings spread at her sides. Her sharp gaze focused on the ground below. "Senior brother, what in Appos is wrong?" Guli asked Wu Bingji. Wu Bingji replied, "There in Appos. A scent of blood in the wind. A demonic beast might be approaching. Probably smelled us." Most demonic beasts had an acute sense of smell, and they were especially quick to notice blood and unfamiliar scents. To them, the scent of humans was not only foreign, but actually rather enticing. "Prepare for battle," Tang San said softly. The next moment, a swirling green light surrounded him. Guli had also activated his Chrono Croc transformation. His body was encased in thick scales, his long tail slightly raised, and the tail hammer gently swaying. Facing the potential arrival of a demonic beast, his mood was somewhat excited. After 2 days of practicing the disorder wind-splitting hammer, he had grasped some of its mechanics. His initial 3 strikes were stable, ensuring each blow was more potent than the last. He was eager for an enemy to arrive to give him a chance to practice. Another strong gust of wind blew. Indeed, there was a faint scent of blood within the mountain wind. It had to be said that Wu Bingji and Appos' sense of smell was incredibly sharp. From the woods below, a rustling sound emerged. Wu Bingji whispered, "Clouds follow the dragon, wind follows the tiger. It might be a winged tiger. Be careful." As he spoke, suddenly a figure burst out of the woods with a swoosh. The muscular figure flapped its wings furiously, charging directly toward the hillside where they were. With Tang San and Appos' discerning eye and celestial fox vision, combined with the purple demon eyes, there was no one around who could see better. With just one glance, he saw the appearance of the newcomer. It was a majestic tiger covered in dark yellow fur with brown stripes. Its back sported a pair of solid and broad wings, with longer fur than its body. From below its lips, 2 sharp, dagger-like fangs protruded. Its torso was robust and powerful, measuring over 2.5 meters in length. Its manner of advancing was unique. It leaped off the ground with its limbs, and then in mid-air, it powerfully flapped its wings for a second burst of speed. It was incredibly fast, and as it moved through the trees, it exuded a fierce aura. It was indeed a winged tiger. They hadn't an Appos. Even entered the winged tigers and Appos' territory yet, and now they unexpectedly encountered one at the border. Tang San saw it. The next moment, Wu Bingji and Guli also saw it. However, there was no panic on their faces. Instead, they showed expressions of joy. The reason was simple. This wasn't an Appos, an adult winged tiger, but a young one. An adult winged tiger was at least 4 meters long, much larger, and had a distinct aura. This winged tiger, judging by its size, clearly hadn't an Appos, reached adulthood. Such a winged tiger would be below the 7th order, likely around the 5th or 6th. It was entirely within the capabilities of their current team. Wu Bingji rubbed his hands together, and a streak of blue formed in his palms, deepening quickly as he manipulated it with his hands. It was an icicle. Through trial and error over the past few days, Wu Bingji found that by rubbing his hands and channeling the ice elemental energy between them, he could quickly compress the icicle, enhancing its power. Guli let out a low shout, stepping forward. A flash of pale yellow light in his eyes, and the winged tiger, about to pounce onto the hillside, paused momentarily in midair. The most terrifying aspect of the time freeze ability wasn't Appo's actually the momentary delay, but the disruption it caused to the momentum built up by the opponent. The fiercely charging winged tiger was frozen in place, and the moment it started to move again, it naturally lost its balance. Guli spun in midair. His large tail swung up, and he executed the first strike of the disorder wind-splitting hammer technique, sending the tail hammer fiercely toward the tiger and Appo's head. The coordination of the Chrono Croc transformation and the disorder wind-splitting hammer technique was perfectly executed, and Guli was incredibly excited. A loud bang echoed as the winged tiger and Appo's head was struck square. The impact sent it whirling down toward the ground. At the same time, Wu Bingji launched the icicle in his hand. It was only a third of the size of a normal one, but its deep blue color betrayed a much greater density. It vanished in a flash thanks to the flicking dart, shooting straight towards the eye of the winged tiger. Tang San was not idle either. In his hands, 18 wind blades blossomed in the style of the 100 birds homing strike. On closer inspection, one would notice that the wind blades he released were a few shades deeper in color than when they had first left the academy to enter the Kali mountain range, a clear sign of increased attack power. The winged tiger knocked down by Guli stood up and finally regained its footing. It let out a loud roar as it prepared to counterattack. At the same time, a burst of green-yellow light exploded from it, blooming outward like an explosion. Freeze! Guli and Appo's second activation of the time freeze arrived almost instantly. The blooming green-yellow light paused momentarily. It was at this moment that the icicle arrived. After numerous battles, the team and Appo's level of coordination had improved immensely compared to when they first entered the mountain range. With a puff, the icicle first pierced the green-yellow light, about to stab into the winged tiger and Appo's eye. But at that moment, the winged tiger burst forth with another layer of green light, slightly more solid. With a crisp sound, the green light blocked the icicle. This almost tangible light seemed to be very strong defensively. However, the icicle was now far more compressed than Wu Bingji and Appo's normal ones. Though it was powered by the same sixth-order cultivation, the energy it carried was much greater than before. Though slowed down, the tip still pierced into the green light. Wu Bingji was stunned at the power of his own attack. Just as Tang San had said, if he could refine the icicle to the level of an ice needle, what defense could there be against it? The winged tiger let out a heaven-shaking scream. Although the green light had blocked most of the attack from the icicle, it still blinded one of its eyes. With its scream, the green-yellow light on the winged tiger and Appo's body instantly erupted to the extreme, forming a light sphere over 3 meters in diameter centered around it and completely enveloping it. Tang San and Appo's infallible 100 birds homing strike drove the wind blades down one after another. However, most of the green light dissipated when they hit the green-yellow barrier, with only a tiny part of the impact force affecting it. All 18 wind blades hit the same spot, as always, yet they only caused the light of the green-yellow shield to dim slightly. Wind astral! Wu Bingji exclaimed almost instinctively. Indeed, it was wind astral formed by condensed wind element energy. This wind astral had a solid immunity to wind attribute attacks. Its defensive power was extraordinary, and it could also be used offensively to great effect. Not only was the winged tiger a wind attribute demonic beast, but it was a peak existence among them beasts. Tang San and Appo's wind blades had little effect on it. Even so, the intense pain in its eye almost instantly sent this young winged tiger into a frenzied state. The slightly dimmed blue-yellow shield exploded in an instant. Countless wind blades and wind arrows burst forth indiscriminately, like an arrow volley flying at the team. Is this a fifth order? This thought flashed through Guli and Appo's mind. Could a fifth-order demonic beast be this strong? Sixth order. This was Tang San and Appo's judgment. At that moment, the winged tiger and Appo's body had turned entirely green-yellow, with a somewhat translucent texture. A wind elemental physique. Extremely strong. This demonic beast was at the sixth order, had exceptional innate talent, a powerful body, and a wind elemental physique that granted it incredible control over the wind element. Its strength was likely above Wu Bingji and Appo's. Though these thoughts flashed through his mind, Tang San and Appo's movements did not cease. Gu Li had already shouted his third freeze. However, his time freeze could not stop everything everywhere. That would have been an absurd level of power. With his cultivation level, his ability could impact an area with a diameter of about 5 meters. At this moment Tang San and Wu Bingji were scattered, and more importantly, there was the large tree where Dubai was located. Thus, when Gu Li activated his ability, his main goal was to protect himself and Dubai, as well as Chang Zicheng, who was also flying around the large tree. Moreover, this time the time freeze was not used to immobilize the winged tiger, which meant the beast could still move. In other words, Tang San and Wu Bingji had to rely on themselves in this dangerous situation. Their previous initiative had suddenly turned into a passive defense. Gu Li and Appo's continuous use of chrono-croc transformation 3 times had also exhausted him significantly. He couldn't and Appo's even deploy the second strike of his disorder wind-splitting hammer. At such a time Tang San and Appo's strength was showcased. His hands moved rhythmically, sending out wind blades like flashes of lightning. It was not just 18 this time. In an instant, more than 25 wind blades flew out from his hands, precisely intercepting most of the wind blades and wind arrows attacking him and Wu Bingji. And that was not the end of it. Tang San radiated a brilliant green light, and he absorbed the surrounding wind elemental energy, causing the attacks released by the winged tiger to dim visibly. The attacks manifested by the wind astral were as substantial as reality itself, and as their power was significantly enhanced by the wind elemental physique, they far surpassed Tang San and Appo's wind blade. This was evident as the ice shields formed by Wu Bingji shattered one after another. A bizarre scene then unfolded. Tang San and Appo's wind blades, upon colliding with the wind blades of the wind astral tier, quickly dissipated. They couldn't and Appo's entirely withstand the impact. However, the wind astral blades also changed direction upon collision, striking other wind astral attacks instead. A chorus of shrill whistles filled the air. Yet no attack could get close to Tang San and Wu Bingji. Wu Bingji effectively blocked only the frontal attacks. Tang San and Appo's sequence of wind blades deflected the other surrounding wind astral attacks. Tang San was undoubtedly the best in his class in terms of mid-range attacks. This display of his ability to control the trajectory of his attacks left Gu Li and Chang Zicheng, who were watching from the air, utterly astounded. In their brief encounter, Tang San had already deduced that the winged tiger, with its formidable physique and natural aptitude for wind control, was certainly above Wu Bingji, even though the latter was also at the sixth order. Ending the battle swiftly was necessary to avoid casualties. "Senior brother, buy me some time," Tang San shouted, retreating backward while moving his hands in front of him like dragons swimming in a sea of clouds. A green light swiftly gathered in his palms. Tang San and Appo's eyes turned completely a vivid green, a clear sign that he was pushing his energy to its utmost limit. At that moment Wu Bingji also erupted with power. With Tang San having dealt with most of the wind astral attacks, Wu Bingji swung his right hand, releasing another icicle using flicking dart. The winged tiger, with one eye destroyed, was in a frenzy. Right after its explosive attack, without a moment and Appo's pause, it pounced already in front of its target. The icicle was shot at close range, and the winged tiger swung its paw, attempting to swat it away. At that moment the launched icicle exploded on its own. With a loud bang, the explosion sent the winged tiger and Appo's paw flying back. In the next instant, Wu Bingji had formed an ice spear in his hand and thrust it fiercely, aiming for the winged tiger and Appo's other eye. The winged tiger roared in anger, gathering the wind elemental energy around its body once more, ready to unleash a burst of wind blades. At this moment Gu Li finally caught his breath. The winged tiger stiffened for an instant. The energy it had just gathered almost instantly dispersed, and it failed to form the blade storm it had intended on. Meanwhile, Wu Bingji and Appo's ice spear was already before its eyes. Their coordination under immense pressure was incredible. The ice spear was about to pierce into the winged tiger and Appo's eye socket. Suddenly, a burst of green light surged from the winged tiger and Appo's body, and the wind astral erupted in response, forcefully repelling the ice spear. However, this action was hasty and less ferocious than the previous outburst. The wind astral gave in inch by inch under the full force of the ice spear. The winged tiger and Appo's wings flapped violently, creating a fierce wind that blew Guli away. It drifted up and backward, and rich wind elemental energy swiftly converged toward it at an astonishing speed. How tough, Wu Bingji thought, shaken. Despite being of the same sixth order, this juvenile winged tiger, not even a mature beast, surpassed him in both elemental control and physical strength. Such was the innate gift of demonic beasts, and the talent of the demon race. But at this moment, he couldn't and Appo's retreat. His junior brother and sister were behind him, and he had to buy time for Tang San. He had a blind trust in Tang San, believing that as long as he could hold off the winged tiger in this head-on clash, Tang San would surely deliver a battle-ending blow. He took a deep breath, and with that, he started radiating an icy blue glow, causing a noticeable drop in the surrounding air temperature. His entire body instantly turned ice blue, a sign that he had pushed the ice nymph transformation to its limit, and he was initiating his ice elemental body. He thrust the ice spear in his hand violently into the ground, and in the next moment numerous icicles erupted around him. As these icicles emerged, they released a bone-chilling coldness in a wild burst. Finally, the wind element around the winged tiger erupted, transforming into a massive whirlwind that swept downward. The icicles shot up from the ground, hurtling toward the whirlwind. They were each over 2 meters long, and they whistled piercingly as they shot forth. The icicles penetrated the whirlwind, and it almost instantly engulfed them. The whirlwind, now filled with icicles, immediately became far more threatening. But then Wu Bingji shouted, "Explode!" With a series of booming explosions, the ice crystals within the whirlwind detonated, their powerful explosive force disrupting the concentration of the wind element. The entire sky filled with a vast expanse of icy mist. The whirlwind continued to howl, but its advancing force had dissipated, scattering in the air. Wu Bingji and Appo's face flushed. This move he had just used was the pinnacle of his ice attribute abilities. This was the Ice Blast technique, something he had developed from what Tang San had taught him. Not only was the ice elemental explosion itself powerful, but the resulting shrapnel could cause significant damage to everything around it. His attempt had managed to block the winged tiger and Appo's whirlwind. At that moment, a ball of orange-yellow light descended from the sky with a piercing screech, striking the winged tiger right on the head. The attack was perfectly timed, as the beast had just unleashed its whirlwind and was trying to catch its breath. With a dull thud, the orange-yellow figure rebounded and shot upward, but the winged tiger was also smashed down from the sky, landing on the ground with its skull sporting a fresh, bleeding crack. The one who struck was Chang Zicheng. Since the beginning of the battle, she had been looking for an opportunity. Without a doubt, she was far outmatched by the winged tiger in strength, and a frontal battle gave her no chance of even staying alive, much less winning. However, the recently learned Golden Wing Wind Splitting Slash had her eager to try. Chang Zicheng cleverly waited for the right moment, which was undoubtedly bound to appear during the most vigorous collision between the winged tiger and its two opponents. At such a time, the winged tiger and Appo's cultivation would be significantly weakened, as would its attention. Chang Zicheng chose to strike from the side where the winged tiger was blinded. She rapidly rolled and spun in the air, driving a pair of golden wings, and unleashed a 9 consecutive Golden Wing Wind Splitting Slash. Chang Zicheng and Appo's approach on the Disorder Wind Splitting Hammer was different from Guli and Appo's. Although the golden wings were tough, they fell far short in terms of weight and power compared to the meteor hammer that was Guli and Appo's tail. Therefore, Shikuden and Appo's repeatedly used the spinning momentum to enhance her attack power, at least not with the current state of her golden wings. But Chang Zicheng had her own ways. Although she didn't and Appo's have a terribly robust physique, her speed was unmatched among the students of the Redemption Society. After continuous trials, she found that leveraging her speed was a good solution to her problem. Spinning around 9 times seemed to be the optimal number, allowing her to maintain a stable form and maximize her speed without getting dizzy. Therefore, her first golden wing wind-splitting slash strike was executed after 9 rotations. The attack and cutting power were formidable, actually surpassing Gu Li and Appo's strike after 5 rotations. However, with Chang Zicheng and Appo's current physical strength and cultivation, she could only do 1 slash. She couldn't and Appo's go for the second one no matter what. The main reason was that after 1 strike, her golden wings were so numb from the shock that they needed time to recover. How could she possibly use the momentum to spin and attack again? Thus it was a single charged strike for her. But even this one attack was enough to come down upon the 6th-order winged tiger from the sky and leave a wound, something she, a mere 4th-order child, could unquestionably take pride in. The winged tiger crashed to the ground, and the intense pain in its forehead made it roar angrily, bellowing at the sky again. It was at this moment that a shadowy figure quietly approached. This shadowy figure seemed to exist between illusion and reality, its faint dark green color blending with the night. If one didn't in Appo's look carefully, they might not even notice its presence.